who would like to share with what's on your mind, thank you for being here. After you're recognized, please state your name and address for the record. Before beginning your comments, you may speak up to 3 minutes, and the county council will not answer questions or requests during this. Please be courteous and respectful of the views of others. Personal attacks on council members, county staff, or members of the public are asked to be refrained from. And we have the first speaker is Sharon Trescott.
Would you make this part of the participation? I'm Sharon Trescott, 689 Pineland Trail, Ormond Beach.
It doesn't seem to be hearing you speak. I don't know what it is.
Is it on?
Is it on? It is on.
Is it on? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Sharon Trescott, 689 Pineland Trail, Ormond Beach. I am here today asking for your help and to thank Chief Taylor and Chief Bailey for their efforts put forth to provide me the proper entering and exiting and the assurance for emergency services onto my property. I am county property, pay county taxes, but on a city road now from an interlocal agreement since 2012. Due to the sinkhole type situation getting worse, on July 11th, 2019, Chief Taylor informed Chief Severs there was concern the culvert will not support an engine or ambulance for an incident if needed, and provided a copy of the interlocal agreement. The city continues to deny and has denied any response to my October 27th, 2018 letter, first informing them of the situation, and then my public comment at their city commission meeting on January 8th, 2019, when I asked again. With that, I came to the county's emergency services for help, and I ask for your help now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Nicholson.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue, Daytona Beach side. Two things. One, we have a problem with the homeless again on Beachside. The city has finally cracked down on the number. We've gone from like 0 sleeping on the boardwalk to up to 27 in like a 2-week period in the beginning of June. I hate going over to the top. I call the number, and they say, oh yeah, they'll have somebody by. They don't check IDs, they don't ask them to move on, and it just grew and grew and grew. So the other day I asked the beach patrol, they were starting to grow underneath the boardwalk again. They were sleeping there, putting their tents and whatnot. And they said, oh yeah, we control under the boardwalk, under the pier. And they drove 150 feet, 175 feet, passed them by and did nothing. So I'm asking you to crack down. I don't know if you have it in your ordinance. They make these little flowers and they leave all that trash and clippings behind. Would you do something about that so that they can do and prevent all this garbage, all these leaves, branches being left on the beach? Secondly, you guys contributed mightily to the First Step Shelter. I don't know if you've been reading the paper lately. For 3 years, every roadblock that can be imagined was put in the board's way. All right? Things changed left and right, some of which were good. The first tent shelter kind of thing evolved into a really good, hefty financial obligation for a really good comprehensive plan, and then it was blocked, and then blocked. It should not take 3 years to get a lease. It shouldn't take 3 years to determine whether there would or would not be Pottinger compliant. Those two things still have not been done. You have a vested interest in First Step. I'm asking you to become involved. I understand the city owns the property, but you helped build the building. It is a Volusia County project as well as it is the city of Daytona Beach. I'm asking you to take your fair share of control of that project. One, that it gets finished in the next month or two, and secondly, that it is done in a way that benefits the whole county and the money that you all put into it. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Barbara, that's it. That was the last speaker who filled out a card to speak, so we will adjourn this portion and see you back here at 10 o'clock for the real meeting, or the second part of this meeting. Official meeting. It's all official. Anyway, see you at 10. Morning, Johnny. Good morning. It's 9:57-ish, and we will begin the meeting at 10 o'clock exactly, so giving you a little over 2 minutes to get everything ready. We have a good meeting today, so thank you all for being here. The meeting will start in less than a little over 2 minutes. Ready for this? It is 10 o'clock, and we will call the August 6th meeting of the Volusia County Council to order. And at this time, we'll have Jacqueline Abernathy, Jocelyn, hard C or not. So with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to ask the council to stand. You can join if you like.
Almighty God, we come to you today, thanking you for this great county of Volusia. Thank you for the people who dwell here. Thank you for the opportunity to minister and to serve in the capacity of these council members and those of us who work within this great place. We think of the earth and the environment you've given to us, the wonderful sea and its waterways, and for the sky, and for all these things we are thankful for. And so this slice of creation where we live and serve, we ask that you'll continue to watch over the decisions that are made here, that they will be for the best interest of the primary ones here. Those are the people, each family. I have seen from my work the blessings that this particular county has because it serves many generations. One person saying that they can look out this window in the nucleus of this city and they can see where they were born, where their family has grown. It is such a rich heritage, and for that we thank you. For the decisions being made today, we ask your blessing over them. In your name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those of you that are here or listening online, it's always been the policy of this council to anyone who wants to offer the invocation is welcome, whether it's the leader of your faith community. It's welcome to all. Contact Marcy Zimmerman, and she will make sure that it will happen. Right, Marcy? Yeah, just so that, I know there's been some confusion in the media and people playing things up, but this is open to all. So at this time, we'll have the roll call, please.
Yes, Mr. Johnson? Here. Dr. Lowry?
Here.
Ms. Post?
Here.
Ms. Wheeler?
Here.
Ms. Denny's?
Here.
Ms. Gertman?
Here.
And Mr. Kelly?
Here. At this time, we'll go to the consent agenda, and I know George wants to make a comment on item D.
DD.
Pardon?
I think it's DD. Double D.
DD. Okay, sorry about that. I had it as D.
We went a little, yeah.
Okay, and Ms. Denny's?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've just for comments only, item X and item double C, and since the manager already pulled double D, we are good. I'm good, thanks.
Okay, Ms. Gertman?
For comment, poll N is in Nancy and P is in Paul, please.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent? I'm sorry?
Mr. Chair, I would like O.
Your name wasn't up there.
Oh, sorry, pushed the wrong button. I'm starting
it
it
doesn't
out
count.
right. I want y'all to know. Okay, O.
Item O.
Just for discussion.
Item O for comment. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion made by Lowry to approve, seconded by Wheeler. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimously, and we will go to comments on item O.
N.
Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Item N will go to Mr. Gertman.
So is that Ms. Kelly coming up? So there's great work being done in our community, and just wanted to mention some of the resources that are coming and being acknowledged in District 1. So if you would share.
Well, thank you. Good morning.
Let me, these microphones seem to be so far away from the speakers. Can they not be moved some way where they're closer?
I can scooch it.
Yeah, move both of them up closer. And I think that would do it. They just were pushed all the way back in, and I think they should do it. Try it.
No. Okay. How's that?
That's much better, but
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Ginger Adair, Environmental Management Director. Item N before you is implementation of a 2-year grant within the Spring Hill community here in DeLand. It's a fabulous project. It's funded through the Southeast Sustainable Communities Network, so it's not any kind of taxpayer funding. And it's a project that we're partnering with Barry University's Center for Earth Jurisprudence and other community members, including the Spring Hill Resources Center, the City of DeLand, and other nonprofits. Stetson University is also going to be involved. It's a great program where we're bringing the idea of resiliency to the Spring Hill community. And we're going to do public outreach. We're going to do education academies with residents of Spring Hill, and really bring this idea of green infrastructure and resiliency to an area of our community that really hasn't been engaged in this issue. So we look forward to doing this project. We'll have great updates for you as we go along.
Thank you. Just an example of some of the good things that we're bringing to the local level, and I believe there's actually some training for some of the lawn industry.
Right.
Lawn
Well,
care.
there are many components to this. Education to the general community is one. We're also providing green industry best management practices training to folks in the community who are engaged in the lawn care industry. So that gives them a certification, and it sort of gives them a little step ahead when they're competing for jobs and that sort of thing. That's been going on. We'll continue to do that. We're working with UF IFAS on those training programs as well.
Thanks so much.
thank you. Now, Ms. Wheeler, O.
Thank you. Again, Ginger Adair, Environmental Management Director. Item O is a contract with AmCon Development Group
for the moving of the touch pool at the Marine Science Center out of the center of the building off to the side, redesigning that touch pool, making it a little bigger and making it more accessible. So the contract in total is for $140,000 in change. It will remove that existing tank, reset the whole area. We're going to put in a little acrylic viewing window for the little guys so they can get down on the ground into the tank, and it will be completely ADA accessible. So we're excited about that.
Thank you, Ginger. I just think this is another thing that we're just trying to use the space as best we can. With that being in the middle of the room, it was really hard. So, I mean, we're cramped in those quarters for sure, but that was a good thing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Item P.
Well, that's me too. So good morning again. Ginger Adair, Environmental Management Director. Item P is another example of the great work that we're doing about resiliency in the community. This is actually partnering with Stetson University to apply on their behalf for a grant for a green infrastructure project at their new Stetson Aquatic Center that's located on Lake Beersford. And this is the result of, they were approached by the state to do some really cool planting and stormwater mitigation at their site. And the state asked them to apply for some of these leftover funds that they had. Stetson put an application together, but then there was the realization it had to be a local government applicant. And so this is us partnering with Stetson to get that money to them for their really great project. So there'll be student involvement, there'll be Stetson professors, and our staff will be involved in promoting this green infrastructure project here on the west side of the county.
Thank you, and just want to acknowledge what a great partner Stetson is, and just grateful to have them in the district and in the county. Thank you.
Thank you.
I guess the next one would be item X. I don't know who had that one.
I did.
And just for those of you listening online, all of this information, all of the backup material is available online. If you go to the agenda, you'll find it, every bit of it right there. So this is just to point out.
So, Mr. Chair, I pulled this because council, we had talked about our fire and EMS services, and this is really one of the big components in partnering as a service center, and I don't want this to go, all the information's not on the agenda, but Mr. Pozo, if you could just explain where we're going in the future for this and how important this is for service delivery?
Yes, ma'am. Joe Pozo, Public Protection Director. This is a demolition and sort of construction project in the unincorporated area of New Smyrna Beach for Fire Station 23. It was in both service level updates for EMS and fire. And what we'll be doing is demoing part of the building and bringing in some modular units for living space, and it'll house the fire component and an EMS component, where we'll actually be switching units out there for better response time and better service. And this will hold us until such time as we do the other construction project in the service level update. This is a really good thing for the community and for both agencies.
And where is it located? What?
It's on Wallace Avenue, right there off of 44 and Wallace.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we'll go now to item CC.
Hey, Judy. I pulled this one too, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
This was, I'm going to talk more about this in my council member comments at the end of the meeting, but I just want Judy, first of all, to take a bow. Thank you. To take, or curtsy. Or curtsy, whatever you choose, for helping us get this grant and on the Indian River Lagoon for the Gabordi Canal, that 10th Street. I drove by 10th Street yesterday, and there's a huge canal there where it was a ditch before, filled full of debris and just clogging everything up. So just explain a little bit about this, Judy. I don't want to take your limelight here.
Well, this is a project that resulted from the Mosquito Lagoon Reasonable Assurance Plan. It's actually the #1 priority project because it treats the most largest drainage basin in the Mosquito Lagoon, and almost all of the water going into the Mosquito Lagoon through this canal called the Gabordi Canal runs right along the south side of 10th Street. is currently untreated. And so we were able to partner with the road construction project to get a larger piece of property to actually not only do the stormwater facilities that are required for the road improvements, but also for the Mosquito Lagoon RAP project. So this, we were able to get a 50% grant from the Indian River Lagoon Council. Thank you, Ms. Denny's, for the design. And at the next month, you'll see the actual design contract come through, and we'll get this project underway. It's very exciting. And we will eventually have partners through the construction with the City of Edgewater and also with the City of New Smyrna Beach.
Mr. Director, well, this is the one that we swapped that land for.
Swapped the land
How
out
was
with the 10th Street project. So, again, this was actually a lot of good work interdepartmentally within Public Works. You know, Judy was aware that that road was going to be expanded, and got with Tad Casbier and Jerry Britton at the time and made sure that we had room to put this project in, and then through working with a developer who had a desire to have more frontage property, and we needed more property and didn't necessarily have to be out along the valuable US 1 frontage. The swap that you guys approved took place. So we're down in that area now. She's doing the design. We have been doing some other cleaning and work anticipation for storm season that we typically do on those eastern canals. So that's some of the work you saw just recently with one of our specialized pieces of equipment. So,
and I guess what goes underestimated and has been, as I understand these last couple weeks, that it's just a check for $100,000. Oh, no, it's not. We are building, and we will use that for return on investment and leverage and match for other grants, and there's a big impact to water quality and quality of life from these particular projects. So, Judy, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Very much.
okay.
Okay, I'm guessing Judy may be waiting for, oh, no, she's not. She's waiting for,
Yeah, well, she is coming here for the next item,
okay, item DD.
DD. Go ahead. This is our cost share agreement with St. John's Water Management for a project over here on this side of the county, another grant. So,
This is a Water Management District grant, obviously with Abby here. We appreciate being able to partner with the Water Management District. Without our partners, we wouldn't be able to get some of the projects done that we were able to get done. This one is for an untreated section of Providence Boulevard, which is next to Thornby Park. You know, we're going to put in one of those second-generation nutrient removal drop baffle boxes, and also do some improvements to the existing retention pond that's in Thornby Park to get additional treatment from those facilities. And this drains into Lake Monroe, which is part of the St. Johns River Basin. So this is another water quality project that I'm quite proud of. And we appreciate our partner in Abby.
Well, a little bit more than me. My name is Abby Johnson. I represent the St. Johns River Water Management District. I'm your intergovernmental coordinator. A little closer. How about that? My name is Abby Johnson. I represent the St. Johns River Water Management District. I'm your intergovernmental coordinator. I want to thank Judy and everyone on your staff who applies for these grants. It's no easy feat. It is a stiff competition every year. It's open district-wide, so you could compete against 119 other municipalities, just to put it in context for you. And with this round of funding for the spring, this brought Volusia counties, not just the county, but all the municipalities within it, it brought your total up to $41 million that the district has invested within Volusia County. And those projects meet our core mission. So thank you very much. We appreciate all that you do to improve water quality, protect floodplains, natural systems, alternative water supply. You all do a fantastic job. Please keep up the work. And I'd love a photo op with everyone.
We love getting these big checks.
Yep. We love it, especially we love it when Abby comes anytime, but when she brings the check with her, we really love her when she does that. So, it's very important. People don't understand, I think, that improving the retention areas water quality is very important. If an effort isn't made to improve the quality of the water in the retention area, we're going to wind up with a lot of problems in the future. So great that this, I wasn't aware that this was being done, but I was aware that we need to, from articles years ago, that retention ponds maybe just become, cesspool is not the right word, but they do collect a lot of different things. So being able to treat before it flows into our other bodies of water is very important. Thank you for both of you and Judy for the grants. And we do everything we can with St. John's. And I know that we have done a lot as far as cooperating, and this goes back to the point where you really need skin in the game to really make a difference with the money that's available, and that's where the grants are, where we have to participate. So thank you both for that.
Thank you.
George, anything else? You good on that?
I think we're good with that, and
Okay.
we got a good photo, so we're good to go.
All right. With that, we will now move to item, and this is an exciting one, isn't it, George?
This has had me beaming all morning.
This,
So,
George was walking on a cloud this morning when I saw him come in. Had the biggest smile on his face.
so yes, I'd like to call up and introduce you to Suzanne Conchin. Ms. Conchin comes to us from St. Johns County, where she's been overseeing their growth of one of the fastest growing counties in the country. She has a tremendous amount of experience, including managerial experience out in county in Colorado. She was actually grew up here, though, in Volusia County. Attended Seabreeze High School, and kind of worked her way across the country to California and back over a period of time. She has also experience in the private sector, which, you know, those of you who know me, I like to see a mix of that, and she provides that. And just a very impressive resume of a lot of work done, and right at a time, you know, when we're talking about growth management, and it's becoming a more pressing issue within the county. She brings a world of experience in that endeavor, but she also has, like I say, managed entire counties and knows all aspects of the work. And I'm just very excited. She has went through a very rigorous search. As you know, we used Slavin and Associates. We've interviewed a dozen or more candidates. She has met with a lot of the senior staff as well as part of that process. And we're just very excited to bring her here today for your confirmation.
Ms. Wheeler.
Thank you very much. Boy, are we glad to see you. We are really glad to see you. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would like to move approval of the confirmation of Ms. Suzanne Conchin for the Deputy County Manager.
Second.
Motion made by Wheeler, seconded by Post to approve the confirmation for our new Deputy County Manager.
Thank
So,
you.
Any, one more little part. Any additional discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous. Welcome aboard.
Suzanne?
Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you very much. I do want to say how grateful I am for the opportunity Mr. Echtenwall is offering. I'm very excited to come and join the team here in Volusia County. I hope I can be very helpful to you as council members and to Volusia County, which, as you heard, is where I have been born and raised. So Volusia is close to me and has been in my family for many generations. And I want to thank you for all the kind words. I hope I'm able to deliver on these high expectations, and I will do my very best for you.
Thank you. I just want a brief comment. You've been in St. John's for 11 years?
Yes, sir.
11 years. We all in this area have followed St. John's, I think most of us. One, it's probably the highest ranking for education within our school systems, and also number one in health. I know we've had that number thrown at us in several occasions. Also, the growth that you have managed and been responsible for was a growth that did not upset the balance of what you had. And so you were able to incorporate that growth, the balance, and attracting residents and businesses alike. So we ask you to go now and do likewise here. So appreciate it.
Thank you very much, and I'll do my very best. St. Johns County is really a wonderful community. It's been my honor to serve with them for these past 11 years, and I hope to bring some of the knowledge and experience that we employ there here in the right way to Volusia County. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard.
Very good.
Thank you.
Item 2, this is a public hearing. The public hearing is now open. And Tad?
Good morning, Tad Casbier, County Engineer. Get my glasses out. This item is a petition from Sunglow Construction, who owns the adjacent property. They would like to vacate a small portion of the W.B. Wright Plat subdivision, which is located within Holly Hill, as well as to vacate the right-of-way easements for Wesley Street and Taylor Street, which are located in Daytona Beach. You can see them shown, not a problem. You can see them shown on the attached exhibit, which is Exhibit 02-8. The red illustrates the right-of-way vacation that we're requesting, and the green in the top left illustrates the portion of the W.B. Wright plat that we're asking to vacate, or the petitioner is asking to vacate. The utilities have not objected, and the staff recommends approval.
Okay, I have no one from the public wishing to speak, so we'll close the public hearing. Council? Ms. Post?
I move approval of the vacation of the portion of W.B. Wright subdivision map book 5, page 101, and abandonment of the portion of the right-of-way easement recorded at the official record book 1181, page 655 for Wesley and Taylor Streets.
Motion made by Post, second by Wheeler. Any discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous, and we will go to item 3. And Mr. Casbier, you're up again.
Again, Tad Casbier, County Engineer. It's my pleasure to present the capital project schedule update for the third quarter. You've got the documents associated with it. We had 50 projects that the county is actively working on, including 7 that had previously been completed this fiscal year. Of those, this quarter we completed 8, highlighted by the New Court Central Services Warehouse, the Hope Place Library, the Doyle Road paved shoulders, and though it was primarily complete before, the new Sheriff's Evidence Center building now is fully complete with the covered parking, which was the second phase added in as the project progressed. With regard to the schedule for all the other projects, we had several that got bumped back for various reasons. The new elections warehouse, the schedule for that was entwined with the office space that the Department of Elections needed, and so we found some different office space, so we're no longer looking to co-locate with the proposed warehouse, so we will be moving forward with plans on the warehouse itself. We've set a new schedule based on that. We updated the Lemon Bluff schedule based on previous discussions after the last quarterly update. The DAB terminal parking lot was, the schedule was now established. Previously it was to be determined, but now that we have the plans, we know what the construction schedule is going to be. Out at the Ocean Center, the arena roof has been delayed a little bit due to changes to the building code for flashing, and so the plans are being updated based on that aspect. Out at the branch jail, the facility network infrastructure upgrade has been extended to allow the contractor for the cabling to coordinate his efforts with the phone and video vendors overall. Out at Coastal, the Sun and Surf Park area, the construction has been delayed while we're still working on getting the coastal construction control line permit that's required. Some delays on that. The Thornby Park water quality improvement project, the design timeline has been extended as well. And then for traffic, the Saxon Boulevard and Marketplace intersection in Orange City, we've had to go into and add a right-of-way acquisition phase for that particular project, so the schedule's been adjusted based on that. So Other project highlights of note, obviously near and dear to my heart, Veterans Memorial. Last night they poured the first deck out there, which is a big milestone, so people will start to see the deck go in. Roughly every 7 or 8 days, depending on how the concrete works and the temperature works for us, they should be pouring deck sections. So another milestone has been hit there. And then West Park Avenue, which I know Ms. Denny's is very interested in. That's set for completion in November based on the contract schedule. We had some delays, obviously due to weather issues, but they will be paving out there this week, which is a big milestone for that project. After they complete the paving for this section, they'll shift the traffic over in the next couple of weeks and then start constructing the base materials for the additional sections to the north. So, making progress. Any questions on a particular project I can answer?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Casey. Ms. Denny's, I guess you had a question. Sorry.
No, thank you. Just a comment, thank you. You answered it before I asked it.
Had an idea.
You kind of thought that was coming. With that, Mr. Chair, I'm going to move approval.
There's no action necessary on this, I don't think.
Then I still approve it.
I don't mind approval.
I know.
I'll take approvals.
I still approve it.
Okay.
I'm good. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. According to my little red line. A little cheat sheet. Yeah. We'll go to item 4, Brian. Good morning, Brian.
I'm Chairman Kelly, Council. I'm Brian Rothwell, Activity Project Manager. I'll be going over the second quarter DMP. Getting it up. There we are. Okay, this quarter we had 16 matrices that were updated. 5 division revised their matrices, 4 added new strategies, and 3 reworded their language. I'm going to just highlight some of the major ones that we did this year. This quarter, the CDBG disaster recovery funds, we got $3.4 million from the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Those funds will be used for Hurricane Matthew damage from the hurricane. We also did a task assignment for Lake Beresford for improvement projects for stormwater facility, which will reduce nutrients and improvement the quality of stormwater discharging of Lake Beresford and the St. Johns River and Imperial water body. We also had the 22nd annual St. Johns River cleanup, where we had over 487 volunteers that helped to clean up the debris at St. Johns River. Under economic and financial fidelity, we had a water quality infrastructure grant, which we provided $500,000 from the Economic Development Fund for Spartan DeLeon Springs, which they were used for the DeLeon Springs production facility, which was $500,000 that they received. You guys also approved the Career Flagger Volusia budget for the 2019-2020. Some of the major capital projects that we approved this second quarter was a major one for 12.9, which is the renovations to the Daytona Beach Airport. Actually, I was there last night, or the night before. I'm like, wow, a lot has happened in a 2-month time period. One of the major things that we did this quarter was the ribbon cutting for the Hope Library, public library, which is very good. We also did the Michael Ader Turnbull Pay Bridge, which was a 7.9 project, which was funded through the Department of Transportation using federal and local funds. You guys also approved a task assignment for wastewater feasibility study for the Gemini Springs and DeLeon Spring watersheds, 100% grant funded through DEP. You guys also approved a task assignment for transfer station feasibility study for site improvements, and we also approved a contract for 440 South Beach Street roof replacements. Under excellent in government and power partnerships, we approved a Sun Trail grant agreement with the FDOT, construction of Phase 3B for spring to spring trail, which was for $2.5 million. We had the third day Community Appreciation Day, which was held April 27, to show the support for the Daytona Beach Airport. And we also did some updates to our website for ADA web enhancements for the volusia.org to make sure that our website is ADA compliant. There are several other things that we have done this second quarter, but if any questions, just let me know.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions of Brian? Thank you for the updates, and we will move to item number 5. Rick, yes, there you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the council. Rick Carl, Director of Aviation Economic Resources. We're here today with Brad Harris, who's our Acting Economic Development Director. Brad finds himself where Mr. Rechtenwald until this morning was. He's doing his job, and he's also now doing Rob's job. So doing a lot right now, but this is Brad's wheelhouse, these numbers and the data, so he's very good at it. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Brad to give you a quarterly presentation, and please come Friday morning to the Q briefing. Always nice to see you there. Thank you.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of council. It's good to be here and give you a snapshot of the county economy as measured by 3 things. It'll be labor, employment, it'll be construction activity, and also something new, and that's business formation. So let me just get right into the slides that are before you. The first one is related to employment, and it's one you've seen before. This shows 2 measures of unemployment. One is what they call U3, which is the standard unemployment rate you would see and understand as those seeking work who are unable to find work. The other line, the dotted line above that, is U6, which is that number, which is those seeking employment, in addition to those that have given up, essentially, or what they call are loosely attached. And so this is a little deeper measure of unemployment. The reason we put both the state and the county here is because there is no county measure for that U6 unemployment rate. So what we're trying to establish is the U3 demonstrates the fact that Volusia County and the state of Florida pretty much run parallel within tenths of each other. And I would suggest to you that the U6 follows that same path. So the message here is there's been tremendous improvement, not only in employment for people seeking actively, but those that have either given up or are loosely attached. You've seen a significant drop from 19% down to almost 7% or 7.5%. And the only other comment I'll make is it did flatten out a little bit since 2014, but from 2017 to 2018, you see the slope again get a little steeper, which means we're continuing to offer employment to people that, again, had given up or are loosely attached. So it's a good message. We continue to help our residents with employment opportunities, and that's continuing, so that's good news. Okay, the next slide has to do with employment as well, but this is a breakout by industry. What's been going on with employment by industry? I'll draw your attention to the top 3, which represent over half of the jobs in Volusia County. 2 of those 3, leisure and hospitality and retail and trade, have just hit record high employment levels for the county. Never been this high. So we're continuing to see tremendous growth in various industries, but most importantly, those top 3 are growing in significant numbers every year. You see a little bit of a drop-off in professional and business services. I'm not sure that's a trend. That may be a point, but that's another area that we've seen tremendous growth. So it's good news for our economy. If you wanted to look at this from another standpoint, though, these are not high-wage jobs, but these are very important jobs to our economy. And they are generating opportunities, and they're generating sales tax revenues, which is important to the Florida economy. So that's what's going on industry by industry. Again, a very positive message. The next slide is also related to unemployment. This is one that you're familiar with. You've seen it several times. But I'm not going to speak a lot about this other than to say that we continue to see improvement. Again, we parallel the country. We're a little better than the country in terms of our performance and unemployment, not quite as good as the state of Florida. But again, just a milestone event in terms of the employment in the county. Back in May, we hit a historic level there as well. We had 247,404 jobs, or people employed, which again is an all-time record for our county. So good news in terms of employment and unemployment. Moving on from there, we do show employment data by city. Any city that's over 25,000, we can get data specifically for them. The message here is all cities that are in the 25,000 plus are stable or improving, and that continues. And I think the high of the second quarter was actually New Smyrna, the newest one to reach the 25,000 population threshold, and they had a 0.8% improvement in unemployment year over year. So good news on the employment front with job creation, a reduction of unemployment. We need to continue that with the work that's being done. Now, the next slide is something new in terms of the way it's depicted, but we have talked about this in other meetings, and this is the impact of what is the QTI, or the Qualified Target Industry Incentive Program, that this council and others in our county participate in. It's a program that is designed by the state as a tax refund program, and it's designed to induce growing companies to either stay here or to come to our county to increase the high value-added jobs in our county. We talked about the tremendous growth in the hospitality and the retail trades in an earlier slide. If we're totally depending on those industries through economic cycles, we know there can be tremendous pain. So we want to diversify. This program is designed to diversify the employment base and the kinds of jobs we have. This chart depicts that. So in the programs that this council has approved and that are currently active, going back to 2014, there are 754 jobs being created or committed to be created in the manufacturing sector. There's another 1,024 jobs committed by employers to be created in our county in the professional services industry. Those are two of the highest wage categories when you look at industry average wages. So the focus of the efforts of this council and the communities has been diversify, and I think they're delivering through this program, both manufacturing and professional services, and to increase average wage, which you see at the top of this slide. For those committed to, $42,807 is the average wage versus our current average wage of $37,903. So it's bringing higher wages and is bringing diversity just as it was designed to do. The next slide is just a breakout of that same group of jobs. So the total that's committed to on all active projects, and that's projects that have been approved by council that are currently adding jobs or will in the near future. So the projects that are active, 1,778 jobs are committed by our employers for this county through this time period. And I just gave you a snapshot in the next column, which is if we take 2019, how many of those jobs should have been created by now? That would be 874 of those jobs would be created in 2019. And the next bar to the right is just how we're doing against that expectation. So far, there's been 916 jobs created versus the 874 we expected. And the year's not over, so that number's going to continue to go up through 2019. And I think you'll see the expectations and the commitments made will be exceeded. And again, mission accomplished in terms of this program. All right, I'll move from employment and jobs, and let's talk about construction.
Brett,
Excuse me.
question about that actual section.
Okay.
So the Volusia County wage and employment impact from the incentive programs. Do you have a listing of the the companies that are opening, or where are you getting that information from? Based on the cities, the shared funding, and the county funding?
The data for this, there's actually 19 projects that I'm looking at,
Right.
and when they apply, they commit to provide a certain number of jobs at a certain wage.
Do you have a listing of those 19 projects?
I do. Not with me, though.
If you could forward those, that would be great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to construction. We're looking at commercial construction to start with, and as you can see in the chart, we've had a very strong start to calendar year 2019. And the first quarter, we had a large project with a Brown & Brown building that was permitted in the first quarter, $52 million. In the second quarter, we have Advent Health, $54 million with a new hospital facility. So we've had some large projects, but the number of permits in addition to that continues to be strong. And all I can say is that we've had a great commercial construction pattern here for a number of years, and I don't see that changing. So commercial construction is very strong and healthy. Moving from that to residential, the residential, there's been questions about this. There's been articles about the decline in residential construction as the year progressed, and I don't see that personally. My comment here would be that if you look at the first and second quarter of last year and first and second quarter of this year, we continue to show progress. Those 2 quarters added together last year was $384 million. This year it's $421. There were 1,238 permits last year. There's 1,348 this year on a year-to-date basis. And if you go into the detail behind what happened in the second quarter, really there's only one area that there's been significant decline, and that's in Daytona Beach. If they were running at the rates they were prior to this, we would see again a healthy increase quarter to quarter. And just a brief comment about that. They have been very active. There's a business development under Minto Communities. They are about to open up their third phase, and what you're seeing here is the lull between phase 1 and phase 2 being near completion and phase 3 about to open up. So I think it's an anomaly. I don't think it speaks to the condition of our economy. I think we're very strong in this area as well. So building is strong. And then the final chart is a new one. This is a new data set that just came out from the Census Bureau in July. And it speaks to business formation. And I know we've talked about, and we've actually had presentations related to the importance of small business and new business in Volusia County. This is really the first data set that the Census Bureau has put out on that. The top line here is business applications. These are people that want an employer identification number because they're starting a business. And you can see, if you go back to 2005, as you move to the right, there's been a rapid acceleration in the number of people that have applied for employer identification numbers. That's good news, because the largest employment generator in our country is new small business. And so that's good news. But if you look at the line below that, which is business formation, it has flatlined. It is not following the same path as the EIN applications. And that's a concern nationwide. There's actually been hearings in Congress on this, why that's happening, what can we do to make a difference. So it's something we'll watch. It could be from things as simple as they just can't get financing. It could be expertise they don't have to really be successful at starting their business. It could be something like labor availability, which is an issue for many businesses right now. So there's a lot of things like that that could affect this, and we'll look at it more closely. But it's something that we have already recognized as important. We've got initiatives underway to help small business, to give them the resources, and to work on the workforce issues in our community, which brings me to the last slide. So in our quarterly briefing this Friday, our featured speaker is going to be Robin King. Robin is going to come and tell us about a new initiative that is called Alliance 4, which is an employer-driven workforce development effort. And we are part of the sponsorship of that. We sponsor that program and a special event that's coming up in September. But Robin's going to share that with us, and probably other things related to the county's workforce and the things we're doing to improve the skills and the availability. And that wraps it up.
Okay. Thank you very much for that detailed report. And one of the points that you just mentioned, I think, is very important. I think I'll round off the numbers, but nationally, there are about 6 million jobs available and only about 5 million unemployed. So when you have a situation like that, the lack of labor availability is probably a big reason for the lack of startups and the lack of expansion. There's just not the people there. And I know especially true in some of the manufacturing where people would really like to add and expand and increase their production. They just can't find the people. So thank you for that report. Rick, we'll move to item number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Rick Carl. I'm here as your airport director with Jay Capsons, the airport's business development director, and Joseph Pickering and Doug Blissett from Mead and Hunt. This is extremely important, and I would urge everyone who is at home or present to download this report, because it's very easy for people to sit back and say, well, Why don't you call Southwest and have them come to the airport? Or you know, why not Allegiant? Or geez, you should fly to Buffalo. In this day and age, it is so challenging for a small non-hub airport, a regional airport like we are, to attract air service. We've done a great job. Jay has worked his heart out going out and making stuff happen. And what we wanted to do is just to show you briefly, we're not going to get into the details of this report, but just show you what is going on, what are the trends, how does air service work. You know, we could spend a lot of time with this, but we're not. We're just going to go through this very, very quickly. Joseph Pickering was, both Joseph and Doug were with Delta for a long time. And when I came in 10 years ago, the first thing we did was went to Delta, which was our existing customer, and said, how can we make this better? What can we do? You always want to serve your existing customers. And Joseph helped us get on the map with Delta, and they began expanding service. And that caused U.S. Airways, then now American, to expand. Our passenger traffic is up 80% over the past 10 years. 80%. That's twice the national average. So we're doing things right. Jay is doing a great job. But we want to come back to you in the fall with an updated program. So this is just to lay out the facts, lay out what's going on in the industry, and explain where we are, and we'll be as brief as we can, but I think this is very important, and if you want to revisit anything, please let us know. So with that, I'd like to introduce Joseph.
Well, thank you, Rick, and County Council members for the opportunity to be here this morning, and feel free as we go through this to stop and ask questions. So for over the next 10 minutes, we'll just talk about, as Rick mentioned, what air service development is, what some of the important trends are that you need to be aware of, what's going on locally at the airport, and then finally, next steps. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Doug Blissett. Doug is former head of planning at Delta Airlines. He was my former boss, and he'll talk about some of the important trends going on in the industry. Doug?
Great. Good morning. Thank you for the time to give you this update. We always start these updates with a little bit of perspective on what's going on in the environment of the airline industry out there. And the major headline for the industry environment these days is the overall profitability, the healthy profitability that the industry has seen. That's not been true in many years in the past, but this chart is a bar chart of profits in the industry, net profits. Obviously, the red bars are losses, the blue bars are the profits. The line that cuts across that chart is essentially the domestic seat capacity that the airlines have offered over that time period. And as you can see, for the last 6 years, the industry has been tremendously profitable, and there are a number of key drivers that have been behind that. The first and foremost is capacity constraint that has been driven by airline consolidation, mergers and acquisitions, but there are other reasons as well. Lower fuel prices in the last 5 years, increases in ancillary revenues, which is selling of frequent flyer miles, as well as bag fees, change fees, seat selection fees, those type of revenues that the airlines have gotten more creative in driving. Fleet renewal by the airlines, purchasing newer, more efficient aircraft out there has been a big driver as well. And then overwhelmingly across all that has been a strong economy for the last 10 years. The last recession was 2008, 2009. So we've had one of the longest runs in the history of the U.S. in terms of robust growing economy. But the most important of those up there is probably the first item, capacity restraint because of industry consolidation. 20 years ago, we had 17 airlines that we could turn to that offered significant domestic service. 10 years ago, that number was dwindled to 12 airlines out there. Today, there are 5 domestic airlines that control 86% of the U.S. market. So in terms of who you go to talk to drive incremental new routes, new capacity, you've got 5 airlines up there, plus a handful of newer entrant low-cost carriers out there like the Allegiants and Frontiers and Spirits of the world. So it's a much more constrained environment. So that means that your pitch to these airlines when you go to them has to be as precise, as sharp, and as effective as possible when you make that. Joseph's going to take you through a little bit of the current Daytona Beach environment, and then we'll move on into some of the efforts going forward.
Rick talked about the record employments that have happened over the last decade, but we still have some challenges. One of the biggest challenges for us is the fact that Orlando is essentially just down the road. Lots of service to just about everywhere you want to go, really cheap airfares. And so about half of our travel from the region are using alternate airports, mainly Orlando. That equates to a big number of potential upside. So even though it's one of the challenges, it's something that is a potential benefit going forward. Over the last couple of years, as Rick mentioned, traffic has grown. We've improved that what we call retention rate a couple of points. And we've got a great story to tell from all the economic development and investments that are going on here. And so we're continuing out there knocking on those airlines that are left, their doors, and talking about the potential upside for new routes out of this market. The other point I want to make here is that another reason we believe the market is underserved is because when we look at a metric like this is seats per capita, for example, and we look at communities to the far left of this chart, you can see Melbourne, Daytona Beach, definitely influenced by the Orlando factor, all the cheap service out of there. You look to communities to the right, like Panama City, that has a Southwest Airlines, or Punta Gorda, which has an ultra-low-cost carrier. You can see that their service levels are much greater. So again, we think there's a lot of upside. We're going to continue that work as we go forward. And Rick talked about we'll be coming back, or the airport will be coming back in the fall to talk about the new program. But just wanted to reiterate that there's still plenty of upside out of here, despite what you may have seen in some of the headlines about some of the service that was pulled out recently. And Doug's just going to talk on some of those decisions that were made.
Yeah, we do want to put some perspective on the recent service suspensions that were out there. Obviously, you've read about JetBlue pulling out of the New York market and Silver Airlines pulling out of the Fort Lauderdale market. And to provide some context to those decisions, first and foremost, JetBlue's service into JFK created some significant successes. Number one, a brand new market from Daytona Beach to New York's JFK Airport. In the first year of service, they filled almost 80% of the seats that they put out in the marketplace. That's a very strong first-year performance. JetBlue acknowledged that throughout the engagement. And in the second and third year, those load factors, percentage of seats filled that the airlines offer out there, continued to improve. Unfortunately, during that time frame, particularly in 2018, JetBlue Airlines was significantly underperforming the rest of the airline industry. They lost money in second quarter 2018 when no one else in the industry did. They were also under attack by significant competitors in New York and Boston, and their own investors and Wall Street were adamant that JetBlue had to go through some significant restructuring. Daytona Beach, as one of the lower average fares from New York, wound up being a sacrificial lamb in that effort. The load factors that Daytona Beach experienced were actually higher than over half of the markets that JetBlue served from New York JFK, but because of the lower average revenue per flight, JetBlue felt like that was a market that they could turn to reallocate some of their aircraft resources to fight some of these other battles and to essentially placate their investors in terms of the restructuring that they were clamoring for. The second airline, Silver Airlines, started service in January with a daily operation to Fort Lauderdale. This was a new market, at least in the recent history, a relatively unserved, unproven market. And their initial loads were as expected. They were building up. They were filling a little more than half of the seats that they put out there in the marketplace. And we had built an expectation that was, in the trend line of where they should be performing. Silver, unfortunately, is a small regional carrier with limited resources, limited funds, and they have proven time and time again that they will churn markets if they don't see immediate strong results. In fact, the Daytona Beach service lasted 6 months. They've had many, many markets that have lasted far fewer months than that. Over the last 5 years, Silver Airlines has canceled over 60% of the markets that they've served. So they've proven themselves to be an airline that is, very willing to churn markets, looking for immediate success. So unfortunately, we feel like the market was ramping up to our expectations. Silver Airlines wasn't in a position to allow it to continue to ramp up to maturity, and as a result, reallocated the service. The key messages that we think to take away from this is, number one, individual airlines, for all sorts of reasons, will make decisions that are appropriate for their own investors, for their own management. But that doesn't reflect on the opportunity that we see in Daytona Beach. There are many, many more opportunities out there that we think have great, significant investment opportunity for the airlines and for this market. And we don't want those two service suspensions to cast a spell on overall Daytona Beach opportunities going forward.
So I just want to spend a moment or two talking about what is air service development. Doug and I are part of a team that are former route planners in some of the world's largest airlines. Essentially what we do is we work with airport staff and community partners on meeting the air service development needs of the community. And you do that because you want to try to influence your destiny going forward, because airlines have a lot more opportunities than they do aircraft to deploy in those markets. And so we're out there knocking on doors, making the business case. Doug and I speak that language because it can be a very complex business. There are a lot of data crunchers, and it's really important to establish those relationships with those decision makers at these airlines, because they're the ones who ultimately determine which markets that they serve. What kind of frequency do they offer in those markets? And so that's what we do on a day in, day out basis with airport staff. And I just want to point out that not all successes are headline stories, the new JetBlue that's coming in town. Some successes are an additional flight to an existing market, larger aircraft that help boost that 80% boost in enplanements over the last decade. They're little kind of singles, I call them, instead of home runs, that can also be defined as success that the airport works on regularly. And often what communities want from their air service and what airlines want are often in contrast. Airlines are a business, right? They want to get the most return on their investment. So they would prefer to operate in a market that has limited to no competition, extremely high airfares, as little investment as they can for the most return on that investment. Communities want the exact opposite, right? They want service to all the destinations they want to go. They want really cheap flights. They want an empty seat next to them when they board that plane. So our job, in conjunction with airport staff, is finding that balance to meet the needs of the communities. A lot of influencing factors go into airline decision making, because these are multi-million-dollar decisions. A new Boeing aircraft coming out of Seattle can run you $80 to $100 million, and so these aren't cheap things to operate. So they want to get it right. So we help make that business case. One of those influencing factors are airline incentives. So we just want to spend a moment to talk about why that's an important aspect of the airport's air service development efforts.
So airline incentives, I spent 15 years in charge of Delta's domestic route development process and another 8 years in charge of their global network development. And incentives, while they're not the primary driver of new route decisions, the primary driver is the market demand, the revenue environment, and the opportunity to make money. These are critical influencing factors out there. Sitting on the other side of the desk, I always expected an airport or a community, when they came in pitching new service, to have some kind of startup incentives to defray the risk investment in the first year of opportunity. And airlines have grown to the point where they expect that from every single airport that comes to them. And in fact, most airports out there in the U.S. offer these kinds of incentives. The either fee abatement or incentive payments for costs to start up service, and particularly the marketing support, are essentially table stakes throughout the industry. Every airline expects this kind of thing. Airlines can get, or airports can get even more creative with those types of investments with other sort of either revenue guarantees or travel banks or other opportunities to show their overall confidence that the service will work. Airlines expect this type of engagement from the airports out there. Just a few examples of recent incentive programs out here. I list a number of revenue guarantees that markets have put out in place, and I'll highlight just a few of them. Wilmington, North Carolina put up almost $1 million in a revenue guarantee to secure a new route to Chicago with United Airlines. Another one up there, Cheyenne, Wyoming, put up over $2.3 million to secure a route to American Airlines Dallas-Fort Worth hub. This happens time and time again in the industry, and while this is not the critical driver of a long-term sustained relationship with a new route, it's critical in the first year or two of service to abate some of the risk that the airlines see out there when they start up new markets, and to provide the confidence that the airport and the community have that these markets will make sense for the airlines.
So what's next? We talk about record employment, some of the changes that's happened at the airport with regard to service levels, but
Ms. Wheeler.
If I could just ask something on the incentives.
Sure.
On Silver Airline, what kind of an incentive did we give them?
I believe it was the standard fee waiver and marketing dollars, and I think you want to speak to that?
For Silver Airways, it was the incentive that we gave them was $50,000 in marketing, and then it was for every 3 months of service, we gave them economic development, gave them $25,000 for every 3 months of service. So they've got 2 payments of that, $100,000.
So then my question is, if they over the last 5 years the airline had canceled 60% of the market it served, I'm not sure why we would have gone after that. I'm just, as this is coming up, I just want to ask those questions.
This is Rick Carl. That's a very good question, and it's an important one. They came to us. You know, we meet with all the airlines, and if an airline comes and says we're going to provide daily service to a new market, first of all, they don't need our permission, but we want to be able to respond to that and say yes, we'll give it a try with you. The incentive that we structured was in arrears. So we didn't just write a check for $100,000. We did some marketing down there, did some promotions, and the incentive was paid after each 3 months. So we tried to mitigate it. I think at the time, I tried to be very clear, this was not without risk. It was risky, but if we're in business and we have to take some risks, so it was. I would say it was worth trying. We made an experiment. We made some money off of it at the airport. And you can't turn away service. We are going to, we have learned a lot from this experience, and I think going forward, we're going to be doing much more due diligence and vetting on these things, and making sure that the risk assessment is appropriate, and that any incentive is commensurate with the risk. That's a very good question, and we've been battling around ourselves about it, so I appreciate the question.
It's actually one of the reasons we have this company here today, is because we brought them in to take a look at what we're doing, these type of things, to kind of do a SWOT analysis of how we're doing this, and that's what Rick is working on, and will come forth on some of the things will change. So they're setting kind of what's happened in the industry. They're going to help us develop those type of analysis so that we're more successful in the future.
Ms. Post.
Is it Joseph?
Yes.
Okay. So, and Rick, if you could come back up for just a second, but Joseph, you mentioned about the relationships that are so important, and but Rick, could you speak just for a second, or either of you, in regards to the public has been pointing out over and over about the incentives, and that, you know, just providing incentives to new business is not what brings them in. So if you could actually speak to the additional things that are involved in that, and that we are absolutely in agreement that just throwing incentives and money at various business entities is not what brings them here to Volusia County. So
Yes.
what are we doing about that?
Absolutely, and Jay can speak to that, and Joseph as well. But what I would say is that this is really why it made sense to put economic development and aviation together under one department, because they're interrelated. So when Jay goes and makes a pitch with Joseph for new air service, like with Frontier or Spirit, he's been with several discount carriers, they want to see what's going on in the community. The crane factor, how much building has been going on, how much investment in the community, what's the job status, what's happening. So it's not just the airport, here are your numbers, okay, you've done well, but what's going on? What's going on in the community? How many rooftops are being built? What's the unemployment rate? What are the wages? All of these factors go into it. It's a community effort, and quite frankly, we're doing well. Our biggest problem is that we have a discount, not only the largest market in the world with Orlando, it's the cheapest market. So it's very hard for a United or a non-discount carrier to come into this market when people are willing to drive to save $50 or $100, or sometimes even it's the same. So that's the challenge that we have. So Joseph, I don't know if you had any more to add to what you've been doing.
Yeah, just to reiterate what Rick was saying, they're community influencers, so they want to know what's going on, as he said, the crane, or, you know, what's changed in the marketplace, what can we expect that's differently. But we help build the business case, so incentives are just one piece of that, and that's really at the very end. As Doug mentioned, having been the former head of global planning at Delta Airlines, it's really the economics of the route. So we look at those route economics. We drill down into, like that leakage study that I showed, that more than half the people are using airports other than the local airport. We put that into the presentation to show what the potential is. That was up front with JetBlue when we talked to them. We met with their planners for that recruitment effort, and that was a community-wide initiative. There were partners like Speedway and others that we brought to the table and got the planners in front of them because they really wanted to hear what was going on. And so they were a little skeptical about the numbers, but as we talked about, they were seeing real improvement. It was just unfortunate with the timing. And the other thing I'll say about incentives, kind of going back to the Silver question, is there a very small percent of the airline's risk? We're taking a little bit of risk, right? So we put the 50,000 up, but what it costs someone like Silver to operate a route like that, or if you're talking about JetBlue, you're talking about multi-million-dollar investments on an annual basis. So we're covering just a small percent of that risk. So we take risk, they take risk in the hopes that the business case that we're presenting comes to fruition, and incentives are just one piece of that.
Thank you for helping to bring that to light.
Ms. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you go back to that slide that you had in the comparable markets that had Punta Gorda up there as the number one?
Oh, yes, the seats per
airport?
capita.
So Punta Gorda is number one because it's Allegiant.
Correct. It's a big hub for
It is the hub for Allegiant, which is, again, lower fares, but more important, what we're talking about incentives and all this. What's put them number one is it's also nonstop. Allegiant is nonstop to multiple cities. So when we look at travel, at least I do, I look at layovers, and if I can go nonstop, I will choose nonstop over fair price even, for many reasons. But what's happening over in Punta Gorda now, I'm sure you know, they talk about transit-oriented development. They have Allegiant's bought all the land around that airport, and they're developing it into condos, and people from the Midwest and all over the United States. My brother just bought a place down there in Port Charlotte because everybody can fly in and out of Punta Gorda nonstop to multiple areas. So I think there's some other factors that we can't discount, including nonstop. And I'm just going to say Allegiant one more time or two more times or three more times because that's the carrier that is skewing that
You're
Bars
absolutely
straight up.
right. And not only Punta Gorda, but if you look at Sanford as well,
Yep.
you'd see similar metrics.
I did want to.
Just for the record, we have been chasing Allegiant for years.
Really?
And
Never knew
without
that.
much success, but our dear friend John Porter came to town for a visit, and he made a phone call. He is very close with the owners of Allegiant, and lo and behold, they're coming for a site visit. So there is hope.
That's really good news, Mr. Carl. Thanks for sharing that. Thank you, gentlemen. That's all I have.
Okay.
Sorry, that's
Carry-
a great
carry-
observation. You're absolutely right, and a fair one. That nonstop service is one of the biggest drivers, and it helps float all boats, right? Those incentive investments you're making, there's a multiplier effect with that, right? You're all business people, you know that if more people can get in and out of here to get their condos, to stay at the properties, they go out and spend money in the community, and so it just is a good investment overall. So I just kind of want to wrap up and say, you know, we've been working with the incumbent carriers like Delta and American. Rick talked about there's opportunities left with them. The airport's incentive program, I think you all have a copy of that. The top destinations that are identified in the incentive program are in line with the carriers we're talking to. So places like that American doesn't serve today, like Dallas and Chicago and Miami, are all top priorities in the airport's program. So is Boston. Other markets like United is not in the Daytona Beach market. They serve a number of markets like Washington, other places that are in that airport's incentive program. So Rick talks about being focused, and that's what the incentive program is designed to do, to hit on these top markets and incentivize carriers like you do other businesses to come into town for a short-term investment. And as I mentioned, incentives don't begin to cover nearly 100% of their operating costs. It's relatively small, less than 10% in most examples. And so beyond the existing carriers that we continue to work with, Rick talked about the call to Allegiant. We continue to work on other ultra-low-cost carriers. There are carriers out there like Frontier and Spirit that are growing at really high rates, so we continue to have dialogues with them. And we do that through a combination of headquarters meetings, industry conferences, any touch point we can get. We're out there selling the Daytona Beach story is what we're doing. And in order to do that, we have to keep these incentives competitive because, as I mentioned before, Doug talked about nearly every community does it, and the fact is it's a small percent of the risk that the airlines are taking. So with that, we would just like to open up to questions.
I think you've had a few questions. I don't see any more. Appreciate it. I think in business we understand the risk reward, and that's what you do. We're in competition. I fly out of Daytona exclusively when I do fly. I want to be home. When I land, I want to be home 12 minutes from my house. In 25 minutes from the time I leave, I can be at the gate. That is phenomenal, so I may pay a little, but I think if people would really start checking and plan their travel, they'll find that it is less expensive to fly out of Daytona Beach. You may have to go, well, you will have to go through Charlotte or Atlanta, but you've got to go through Atlanta to get to heaven or hell, so it doesn't really matter. But
Probably the latter.
So, but thank you very much. We appreciate all the
Chairman,
effort.
we may want to take you with us on our next visit with the airlines.
That'd be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Rick. And Rick, you're up next again.
Yes, sir. Oh, you keep it.
Item number 6.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, Rick Carl, Airport Director
7.
here. What is before you here is a slight adjustment in our parking revenue. We can walk through the slides, but if you wish, what I want to do is just make 2 points. That number one, we are improving the parking area. We're going to spend about $5.7 million on paving, wayfinding signs, and covering the ticket dispensers. So this has nothing to do with the terminal renovations. This is just we need to operate as a business. We have to be financially independent, and so this is 14% of our revenue, parking revenue. So we've got to make periodic adjustments. That hasn't happened since 2015. Jay used to work in Orlando, and if you have a comparably priced parking spot in Orlando, it's dirt, and it's not the same experience as you have here. So I'd be glad to answer questions. Jay, again, is here. He worked up the presentation, and if you have any questions, we'd be glad to walk through it with you.
I'll make a motion that we approve item number 7, airport parking rate adjustment.
Second.
Your microphone isn't on. Your microphone is not on.
Motion made by Johnson, seconded by Gertman to approve the parking rate adjustment. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous, and we'll move to item 8. Donna Butler. This is a budget resolution for the submission of fiscal year 2019-20 HUD one-year action plan and appropriation of the grant proceeds. Ms. Butler.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of council. Donna Butler, Community Services Director. This is our one-year annual plan that goes to HUD. The budget item is for $3.1 million, but we're receiving approximately $2.7 million in 3 different grant funds, our CDBG, Home, and ESG. We are also programming, though, about $400,000 of program income, and so that added with our grant funds brings us to the total of $3.1 million. Included in the agenda item is the action plan summary. So you'll see all of the proposed projects that the cities have sent to us, those that are eligible and work through our process. In addition, you'll see the home investment program and how we plan to spend those funds and our emergency solutions grant funds as well. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Ms. Gertman.
I just wanted to move to approve.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Gertman, seconded by Ms. Post to approve the submission of the fiscal year 2019-20 HUD one-year action plan. Any discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous, and we will move to item number 9. And this is Ms. Montgomery. Approve.
Good morning, Regina Montgomery, Solid Waste Director. Before you today is the agreement with FCC to provide residential solid waste collection services to the unincorporated area of the county. The service will include once a week garbage, bulk item, yard trash, and recycling collection to over 46,000 residential households. The new contract will commence on April 1st, 2020. The initial period will be a 7-year 6-month contract with an option for 1 7-year renewal. Representatives from FCC, Charles Merkley and Dan Brazil, are here, and staff does recommend approval.
Ms. Gertman.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. Mr. Lowry.
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the agreement.
Motion made to approve the agreement with Fomento de Construcciones de Contratos, Inc., en español, DBA FCC SA for residential solid waste collection. Motion made by Lowry, seconded by Johnson. Any further discussion? Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous. We'll move to item 10. George? Or
Yes. I'd like to go ahead and we'll discuss the positions as council requested. Go ahead and put that chart for the item that's up here. Since we presented the budget, there has been some changes in some of the requests, and I wanted to go over that. But basically, as we put this up, we broke it out into each of the areas. People wanted to know the amount of current vacancies. We have that, and then the new position requests. We presented before you the EMS paramedic and ambulance supply technician. That was all part of our previous presentation earlier in the year, back I think it was in February. And then Joe came back, Mr. Pozo, and we went over the fire service model, and we talked about those positions. The The goal in the fire department, we have several stations along the edges of cities that we are working with the cities to have mutual aid agreements. And part of that is some of those stations, not all, but some of them have to be staffed with a third person, and they take on roles that the county does. And again, working with the cities, things like technical rescue that are unique to the county, and something that we fund actually a little bit differently through the general fund, because we take those unique roles on. So it's something you'll hear probably more about, but how the fire departments do work together and take on different tasks so that we have a little less duplication. The Office of the Sheriff is where the change. Originally, there was 18 positions that he had asked for. After discussions with the sheriff, he amended that request and is asking for 8. In the packet, the IT director for the sheriff outlined where the emphasis was going to be in the sheriff's department. If you'll recall, we have the 800 megahertz radio system that is going out to RFP this summer. That'll be a very large project. It's something that we've been saving for quite a few years. And of course, it is heavily information technology usage. Also, we have the computer-aided dispatch that has to be upgraded. That is another very, very large task, a tremendous amount of data that has to be put in and then manipulated and configured. So very, very large task. And then other projects coming down the road will be also the 911 system. So there's a lot of IT work out there, and he's asking for those type positions. And we would support help in that area. That does not really, it's not dependent on the format of the government. That's work that would be going no matter what format we were at. He also has asked for 2 deputies. Part of that, he had asked earlier in the year to, because of the possible transition, he needed some people in some administrative positions that did not exist in the sheriff's department. So we took 2 deputies positions and we converted them for usage for those admin areas. And what he's asking for here is for those 2 positions, the deputies, to be replaced back out on the road. The property appraiser has asked for an appraiser position, but also he's asked for an IT person as well, because they do have a robust system down that they have to operate, and they work in very tightly with our GIS folks, and but he needed someone on his side as well. And then finally, the county IT, they needed one more position due to some of the upgrades and security that they're doing on their side of the fence as well. So that's the positions, and I just wanted to note that we did break that out by the budget impact and the what the impact would be to the millage. So you would be adding with this request as part of the budget, there would be an added expense, because these are actual additional positions. There has been some discussion about the existing vacancies that are out there today. I need everyone to understand that that's a very fluid number, and I think we discussed it a little bit with the News Journal, but on any given day, that number moves significantly. A lot of the positions that are open today, as we find ourselves kind of at the end of the summer season, included in those position numbers were recreational aides that, as summer programs have come to an end, or maybe were not people didn't sign up. So we have those positions that were filled, and then people have either gone back to school, or they were not filled to begin with because they did not get those people sign-ups in those programs. On the lifeguard, that's something we've talked about before. We always have openings in beach patrol, lifeguard, because we don't lower our standard. It's really dependent on how many people come through recruitment and then can meet the standard, and we always operate around that number. And again, the other thing also is that it peaks out somewhere in June, early July, and then a lot of our lifeguards are college students. They're also teachers in the system, and they go back and they want to have some vacation, or they go back to school. So that number, again, tends to peak out right about now, and I think that's just something to note. The other thing I want to point out, and why it gets tricky in these public protection areas, when you have an opening, when someone does leave us, and that's why we work hard to have good retainage, is it's a long process to fill that position. It's not something we can walk out and do an advertising and bring them in. There's extensive background checks that have to be performed. There's extensive training in schools they have to go through. So often you'll see a number, they'll have openings, but they'll have a known amount of people kind of in the pipeline of hiring. So if you were to ask someone in that area how many openings they have, they may have a smaller number in their mind, because they have made a decision on several people, but they have not actually come on to our system, so to speak. When we give that report, it's people who are actually started, they're here, that position is now filled with a body. So I just want to point that out when we talk about vacancies. We run typically at an 8 to 10% number, and that's actually factored into our budgeting. We know that, so when we do our budgeting math, we don't discount the fact that we know that there is a certain amount of attrition and turnover. So that's something that Tammy and Don have already accounted for. So just wanted to point that out as well.
Ms. Post.
I just, point of information, I just wanted to point out, just for the public, the Volusia County Sheriff's Office has a number of position requests for patrol requests, and also some IT positions. But I'm looking at the memo that was provided and that is included in the agenda for the IT positions, but the subject is actually FYI 9-20 request for new lieutenant positions. And LT is noted several times within that memo. So I just wanted to, because there's a huge disparity in lieutenant positions as opposed to IT positions. So I know that we are approving the IT positions, but I don't want anyone in the public to think that there are lieutenant positions being approved as part of that patrol request. So just a point of information.
Mr. Johnson.
I think all of us have looked over the majority of these requests, and some of them we've talked about in the past that we, at length. But I'm kind of wondering about the fact that when you have long existing vacancies, do you fund the new positions? And I'm just wondering, once you fund it, you never see it again, whether it's filled or not. It's just added to the budgets, and we're kind of a hole that we don't know, and we're looking at going into Amendment 10. And you can take and end up with a lot of budgets that be put somewhere else. And I'm not saying these aren't necessary, because I believe they are, especially when you get into IT. We've seen different counties, cities, and other units throughout the country recently that have actually been, their IT sections have been taken hostage. And so it's very important that we look at this and we make sure that we stay ahead of that curve. Now, understand the two deputy positions were two that were moved out of deputy positions for two other positions and asked back again. And I got no real problem with that, but I would recommend that we pretty much approve the positions, but not fund them until they are filled. That we, as they're filled, then we can fund them then, instead of just throwing the money out there into the budgets at this time. Now, I don't know, it may not be feasible, but that's my recommendation.
Donna, you can speak to this, but I think that if we have the positions, we have to have the funding available in the budget to fund them. But we also know that we have, how many, 400 vacancies right now? We're not putting millions of dollars that in a budget for which we know that we will not have all the positions filled, correct?
You've got that correct. Now, it's assumed that the positions that you're approving, because you are adding to the position count, you're adding to the authorized number of positions, those are going to go in as funded at this point in time. Just like you said, when we budget, we also budget for the fact that we're not going to, all the funded positions are not going to be filled. So we have metrics that determine that they run some metrics to determine what they should be budgeting at in the different agencies to see what their attrition rate is or their vacancy rate is. So that is true. That's a true statement.
Yeah, I don't see how we could put the positions in the budget and not allow for funding, Mr. Johnson.
We've done that in the past where we held, even during the recession, we took in almost everybody in the county, we took and held the positions so we wouldn't have to go back through all the work of going through personnel. We held the positions, but we didn't fund them. And that's just what I'm getting at right here is we give them the positions, we just not fund them until they bring them on board, and then we fund them. That's what I'm trying to look at.
To me, the funding part of it has to do with the creation of the budget. And the budget we have to approve in September, and the budget has to include projected revenues for projected expenses, and they have to balance. Maybe somebody else can explain it better than that. I don't know how, but maybe they can. George, Donna?
Well, you're correct. I think one thing you could do, and we do this, and we could hone it down a little bit more. We tend to look and figure out, well, what point in the year will they really be able to add that position? So October 1 occurs, but we know that they may not, for whatever reason, be able to add that person until January 1. Well, that can be factored in, and is in most cases, but we can take a harder look at that and really hone down and see. So then essentially you'd be funding 3/4 of a position, and that person couldn't start until the funding was available in January or whatever point in the year. In fact, the sheriff's original request, when we had talked, he had agreed at that time that he probably wasn't going to put some of those positions on until April. So his number reflected that when we originally put this together. He has since, like I say, he has changed that and decided some of those positions won't be necessary this year at all, so he removed them. That's the type of thing that we do go through with all of our department heads, and also ask, what's the realistic time frame that you would be able to actually put that person on the payroll? Because as I point out, on October 1, if we decided if you have in there firemen or anybody that has to go for a background check, that's going to add time. There's expenses, of course, we have through HR to go and start that background, but it may be 2 to 3 months before they actually are on the payroll. From the time we decide, we're going to pick person A goes through the background checks, the testing, the physical, and start with us could be a couple of months. Again, we try to factor that in, but we could look at honing that even more. I will say that, again, it's important to understand, though, that they do look at everyone's vacancy rate. So whatever division, they know that their overall personnel services line item probably, if it says 100 people, it's probably going to be more like 91 people, because the reality of it is 10% or 8%, don't quite ever, there's a turnover. And we, through the years, a lot of good data, experienced budgeting people, they know to hone that down already. So it frustrates sometimes division heads and stuff who think, oh, I must have a savings, and they really don't, because we already figured that out. So, but that is, and it's important to know too, is they can't willy-nilly move money around within the budget. So if they don't hire, and it does happen, that money does stay in the personnel services line unless they have to come before this body to ask, and they may, depending on what's happened, and we've decided that we're going to use technology, or we're going to use a contract, we're going to use something different, and then they may do that. But that's not something that gets done lightly, and it's done, it has to come back to you, because you're making a change in the budget when you do that.
Ms. Dennis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There's a couple points to this. Listening to Councilman Johnson, and I've thought about this along those lines also, but the other option is we don't approve it at all until the demand exists, and then we make a budget amendment. It happens all the time. So if we're having a problem with, do we put it in there, and just not fund it, and if that's an issue, well, just don't put it in there, and when the time comes, should that time come, that the positions are filled and there's a need for 2 more, then we make a budget amendment and we bring it back to council. The other piece to this, looking at this, council, is, and this is where, because I'm watching this budget process here and how the discussion is going, that should you support this, just know we've increased the budget just under $1.5 million. You're increasing the budget. You are voting for a tax increase. You can't get away from it. You can't vote for this and then come budget time and posture differently and let others do the heavy lifting. You can't have it both ways. You just can't. So that discussion is going to be coming down the road, but my file is growing on this. So there's things we have to consider, and my suggestion would be, Mr. Manager, Mr. Chair, Council, perhaps we authorize these new positions with the exception of the 2 deputies, leaving that door open that should the need arise, we allow a budget amendment to come forth and fund those positions at that time. But to put a placeholder in there if and when at this stage, I just don't think is fiscally prudent. Especially when there's not a need demonstrated at this stage. It's my 2 cents.
Okay, Ms. Post.
So I have a different viewpoint on that. I think this is a tremendously slippery slope. We've proven that we are in need of personnel in the various public safety divisions. If we're doing this for the SO, then why aren't we doing this for fire and everyone else? Because that would make sense, right? If that's the reasoning that we're doing it, then why aren't we doing that across the board for all of the divisions? But I think we desperately need personnel in these areas. Two, I think, is a very tiny number for the SO to try and recoup and get them back to where they need to be to fill their vacancies. And to hold on to positions to come back later, I'm absolutely not in agreement for. I think these divisions require personnel. They've needed personnel. We talked about EMS and fire, that the personnel numbers changed from February to June. I think if they require the positions, if we are at least giving them this pittance of positions, then we absolutely need to do it and allot it and move forward.
Let me just see if I can kind of equate this. I don't like the idea of not funding and then saying that we can just come back and find money somewhere in a budget amendment to fund them. I would rather lay it all out there. Here's what we have. Here's the funding that's going to be necessary to fund these positions. And we put it into the budget. If we wind up not funding, I mean, I know Donna does a great job, and where you mentioned that some of these won't be added till next April, so the amount of funding that would be dedicated wouldn't be, say, $50,000, or you use a number, it would be $38,000 that would go into the budget, or $18,000 that would go into the budget. So you allocate, that's a complex thing. That's why we leave that to the professionals to do that part of the budgeting so we know. And then the amount of revenue that's necessary to fund it is what tax rates that we're going to adopt to fund those positions. If we wind up not funding those, that would give us some funds that we could use in the event that we did need to add an extra person in a lateral position somewhere. But it doesn't really make sense to not fund them and then to try to create the budget, because to come back and do a budget amendment, we've done that where we've had to shift funds from one employee service type 1 to service type 3 or something. So you could possibly do that within a department, and I think that would be wise to either adopt it in total, plan to fund it, and as you say, Ms. Denny, the heavy lifting is you can't say we want to have these employees, but by the way, I'm not going to support the money to fund them. Now, that just doesn't fly to me. I've seen it done in commissions and councils, and it's just not fair to say, oh yeah, we need this, but I'm not going to vote to fund it. The funding is going to come from the tax rates that we set and the revenues that's projected. So, Mr. Johnson, you're going to make another motion? Before you do that, our resident, John Nicholson, wants to tell us what's on his mind. Huh? I don't want to take public input on this because but I think council would tell me I have to. But I don't want to, but I will.
I'll try to be brief.
Please.
One, for personal information. I don't know personally, and I don't think most of the public know the difference between keeping somebody in overtime versus hiring a new person. I understand their reasoning between them, but I don't personally understand it. So when you do something, please allow us to know why. If you have a police officer at like $65,000 a year, and then he gets overtime because he's been there so long, he gets time and a half on a very high salary versus somebody making 38. There's a reason, but I just don't understand why. Okay? If there's a need for it, hire them. If you can fudge it by doing overtime because it's cheaper, please explain it so I understand why. And secondly, I was at a city one time in which they had an accountant or a consultant come in, look at the staff and determine which staff overlapped, how many you needed in each department, so that somebody outside comes in, it's not your favorites or whatever, they come in and say, okay, objectively, you need X number of people in this department. IT is coming on board big time, you will need X number of people. So that it's somebody else coming in to tell you how to run your numbers most effectively. So it's not a department head looking after self-interest. It's somebody else saying, this guy needs X number of lieutenants, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm wondering whether a consultant, for whatever price, I don't think they're that expensive, can tell you exactly who, what, when, and where you need in personnel. Thank you.
And I will be happy to spend time to explain that to you, John, if you'll take the time to come talk to me. And as far as a consultant, experience that we have in having the department heads justify why they need it, we have a historical perspective of that. We understand that. We understand the difference between overtime and way overtime and a new employee. And we do understand that, and the public, I hope, would be able to understand that as well. And now, Mr. Johnson.
Any positions we have in this county that are long-standing, open, I don't care where it is, we should not be adding more positions until they get full. Those are filled up. When they get filled up and they need them, they come, and I will be more than happy to support that. But not just adding positions when right now, I mean, this single budget here has gone up in the last 3 years, what, $8 million, $9 million from this one department? We just can't sustain continuing to add to our budgets like this and keep our taxes down. When it's needed, fill it. If it's not needed yet, fill what we have open and go from there.
Okay, then I have a question for you, which goes back to the other question. If the positions aren't filled, and they do need positions, where are George and Donna going to find the money to fund it?
Right now, they've got 36 positions funded that they haven't filled. That money, I'm not saying take that money away. I'm saying don't add future positions until we start filling them up.
I'm not arguing the point. I'm just bringing up. So your position is that there's enough funding with the open vacancies that they have without adding additional positions.
If necessary, I think they can always go into reserve for that situation, and it's not going to be for a full year, so it's not going to affect us as bad. When you have a deputy's position, you're not talking $36,000 or $44,000 by the time you're finished with all the other benefits involved in it. You're talking $100,000 or better. 21% retirement, insurances, the vehicle, cameras, IT. By the time you're finished, you're talking actually probably the first year $120,000 along with training.
Understand
So
that.
you're not just talking $44,000 for a deputy sheriff. Once we get that billed, I'm more than interested in doing it, but I'm not interested in just taxing our budget, throwing money out there, and that's for any department out here in this county. We have to watch it, we have to respect our taxpayers' dollars, and we can always make mid-year or any other time we have to look at it and find a way to do it. And chances are they're not going to have all those positions filled because they haven't had them filled for the last 2 to 3 years. So I don't think it's going to happen this year.
And that's why we're here. Whatever positions that you don't want filled, that added to this, the request for increase, make a motion on which ones you want to eliminate, and we'll put that up for a vote and see what the rest of the council wants to do. Which ones do you not want to add on the new request?
I'll make a motion not to add the 2 deputy positions. I think we need to keep the information technology positions. They need to go with that full bore for the protection of our computers in our county.
Okay. Motion made by Johnson, seconded by Lowry to add the position, to add all the new position requests except for 2 new deputies. The motion is made and second. Additional discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1, post dissenting. So we have done it. Okay, I think that's all on this one. We have put that out there. We'll move to item number 11.
Let's see.
That was a good discussion. I enjoyed that.
Good morning, Tammy Bong, Budget Administrative Services Director. Today you have your 3 agencies that are going to be submitting.
You got to move those closer to you, Tammy, or some way.
Speak up louder, right?
That would work. I know you're very mild and
I
laid
am
back,
very mild.
but
Even with the red hair, I'm still very mild.
yeah.
All right, the 3 advertising agencies are here to present the budget for the following fiscal year. Their layouts and their financial information is in compliance to our forms that we submitted to them. We will go with the order as Southeast Volusia, West Volusia, and then Halifax. And of course, they will introduce, I know they have some members in the audience as well representing each of those areas. So if we want to start off.
Good morning, almost afternoon. Debbie Meals, Southeast Volusia Advertising Authority. And before I begin, I would like to introduce Team NSB that is here today with us. I have our treasurer, Donna Ruby, the GM of the Atlantic Plaza Resort, and I have Lily Scheller, Director of Sales from the Best Western, New Smyrna Beach Oceanfront. And for staff, I have Susie Sapotnik, and I have Courtney Brokaw, David Villegas, and I have Roberta Shops from our advertising agency. They're all here in support and doing great stuff for all of us. All right, let me get my clicker here. All right. Okay. So we've talked in the past about building our foundation. It's been 4 years now. We're doing quite well. We're up 9% this year over last year at this time. And barring any weather-related incidents or anything else that would pose a major threat to tourism in the area, we should finish strongly this year. And one of the big niches that we're focusing on this year, last year, and in the future is the outdoor adventure, which is the trails, the dive sites, and the parks that Volusia County is so rich in. So we have in our visitor center a lot of information on those trails and dive sites. We have it also on our website. And we also have a Google interactive map on our mobile application for all of the parks and the dive sites and parking by the beach and beach access points. We find we get a lot of interaction with that, and it's very important to us. We're doing some current updates on our website to add more imagery, video, and photography as well for all of those. I wanted to also let you know that building this foundation in our marketing plans, we take it very seriously. And 3 years ago, we accredited our office with the DMAP accreditation from one of our global associations that we're members of, Destination International. That's our ISO 9000 that actually provides a lot of best practices, financial, fiscal, personnel, HR. It covers 16 different modules. We just renewed and re-accredited with them this year, so we're excited about that. Also, my accreditation is through Destination International, and that's the Certified Destination Management Executive. And I've held that accreditation for 10 years now, and I just had to take a couple classes and get recertified, so that was completed as well. And each year we do a strategic marketing plan that encompasses all of the things that our board would like to see, as well as staff, and to project us into the future and forecast what's happening down the DMO road. And this year, we're really excited to say that during our workshop with our board, we are going to be doing the Destination Next, which is through Destination International, a lot of acronyms here. But this actually is going to be our roadmap for 2020 and beyond. It's going to be a 3-year strategic plan, and it will actually help guide us. As we know, the future of destination marketing has changed so much, and we live in a very dynamic world, and we know that change is the norm. So we need to see, what does leadership look like? What does the forecasting, how is the traveler changing? We know we've got the millennials and the Z generation out there that are totally changing the way things are doing. They're embracing shared economies, and we know with Airbnb, all of the issues we're having with those kind of things. So it'll incorporate a lot of things, and we'll activate our board and our staff members with that, and do a survey to our stakeholders as well, which will go out any day to really see how the destination attributes are, and then we'll build off that. So one of the things too that we've really focused on is sustainable tourism. You have a sustainable straw in front of you, so I hope you use it in good health. And also our visitor profile booklet from 2017-2018, which is our last complete year of data. I just wanted to call out the Marriott Spring Hill Suites, Third Wave Cafe, and Marine Discovery Center. They have just gotten certified in the Blue Community, which is a global certification process for sustainability in the tourism industry. So we want to protect our assets in New Smyrna Beach area and Volusia County. We're working with Team Volusia, Green Volusia, and many other of our chambers, environmental committee, and all of that to make sure that we can start expanding this. I know Lily's property will be doing her hotel as well, and we've got 3 others that are going to go into the program next. I did want to say that we submitted an award proposal to visit Florida for the Florida Governors Conference that's in September, and we just learned that we were a finalist for our sustainability program, and they actually have asked us to be one of the breakout sessions on Thursday at the Governors Conference. So we will be telling all 67 other DMO counties what we've done, how we did it, and how they can share some of the best practices. So very excited about that. Okay, these are just some of the accolades that we've had this year. You probably get Google alerts and everything else, but we've worked with our media quite well, and we're really trying to get out there to showcase some of our attributes. This is the budget that you have before you. This shows approximately a 2% increase this year. As I mentioned, we're finishing strong so far this year, and this also incorporates a very healthy reserve of about 27%. And here's a pie chart showing that. So you can see personnel services, fully staffed, we would be about 14%, and the reserves being 27% is something we've worked hard.
Ms. Dennis.
Just a question, Debbie. Congratulations on your fiscal success, but why the need for 27% reserve?
Actually, I feel that's a little low, quite frankly. 27%, you know, the industry has threats all the time, whether it's, you know, the red algae, the guacamole algae, the blue-green, or we have terrorism or the gun issues that we're facing. Tourism is a very resilient industry, but it's also the first one that gets affected because so we need these funds in case we need to come before you to ask for an emergency campaign or just to sustain our summer campaigns and ask to cover more markets.
Great answer. Thank you, because that's actually very critical. Thank you. Thank you for building that in to answer some issues that we have no control over. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay.
Okay.
All right. In the personnel services, oh, I'm sorry, was there anybody else?
No,
Oh,
I
okay.
just said-
Personnel service, just wanted to cap off that we have a dynamic person that we hired as an admin coordinator, and we are looking to move that person into the marketing specialist, the media digital component position that we have, and that would leave our administrative coordinator position open, and I would seek to fill that this fall. Otherwise, this assumes a 3% increase for staff, and we are in compliance with all of the county classifications and compensation plans. And thank you, George, to your team, and Donna for working with us, and AUE, and my SEVA board for approving all of this, and we seek your approval.
Okay.
And then just in marketing, one thing to top off here is that we, this year, will no longer fund special events. As you know, I've come before you before showing you how we have made that smaller and smaller each year. Does not mean that we won't support them, but what we will do, because we have so many marketing channels, is we will put them in our marketing and we will help them get the word out into those top feeder markets.
Okay. Ms. Dennis.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Are you done? I'm going to wait for her presentation to make the motion.
She was
almost.
finished, and then
Yep.
she started back up again.
I'm sorry, I think I just have,
you asked for our
I don't have
approval.
many slides. I think I have one more.
You asked for our approval, and then. I thought-
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
All right, my
Okay.
bad.
Nope, that's it.
Go ahead.
Okay, there we go. I was done.
I
Sorry
thought
about
you were
that.
done.
I knew I didn't have much.
Mr. Chair, move approval of the Southeast Volusia Ad Authority's 1920 advertising budget.
Motion made by Denny, seconded by Lowry. Any discussion? I just want to compliment you on adding the list of the recreational areas and the parks and so forth. A couple of years ago, I got a request from somebody, where are all the parks located? Well, at that time, there was not a general place that showed those. Because some of them are in cities, some of them are in county areas, and so appreciate that. I think that's very helpful for people to see that. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous, and
Thank you.
appreciate
All
all the
support.
details.
All right.
Now we'll go to Georgia, West Volusia.
Hello. Georgia Turner from the West Volusia Advertising Authority, and I'm very excited to be here today, really to talk about several small things, just that we're in this upcoming year, we're really looking to build on our success. We've had a great year, which I'll show you in the budget in just a moment, a lot more than we could have ever expected. But we do have two pieces of information this year that have really helped us, because we just did a strategic plan and also did a little bit different kind of research with a data profile analysis that showed us some new things and some new markets that we might want to move into. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the identification of the key markets and a brand-new market that we're looking at. And also our increase in digital advertising, which we've told you the last couple of years. Co-op, when you're a smaller budget like I am, you have to work with a lot of different folks. Public relations with some different things that we're doing, and also our travel partnerships. Those key markets, I'll just go through real quickly. Outdoor enthusiast, I know we talk a lot about trails, but that's probably one of the biggest things that we have going for us. Everything from skydive to land to our 3 fantastic state parks that we have here with Springs and Huntoon Landing, that kind of thing, on down to our fishing, which I'll talk about. Our second one is arts, history, and culture. We've worked very closely with our, not only our events that promote those 3 kinds of markets, but also with our great attractions such as the Stetson Mansion and the West Volusia Historical Society at the DeLand House. Destination weddings has been something that I brought to you the last couple of years. 2 things that we really try to do with almost everything that we do whenever we can is to include all of the areas that we promote. We have 14 communities that we promote. So we're really always looking for something that encompasses everything from Seville down to Enterprise. And if you have heard anything about what's happening with destination weddings, we've got that and really going very, very well. People are getting married all over West Volusia right now. The fourth one is a new one, and I've kind of been inspired by one of the county employees, Tim Bailey, to look at this as a new market, just because he has so many wonderful statistics that he shared with us about the benefits of trails. And one of the things that I really think is cool, not only for us, but for us that are trying to bring visitors into the area, but also he has this great statistic that approximately 2.4 million Floridians have been diagnosed with diabetes, costing the state's economy $24.3 billion. Volusia County's estimated $4.2 billion in healthcare expenditures could be reduced by $84 million if just 1 in 10 folks with diabetes exercised on a trail on a regular basis. So we really do see trails as a huge part of what we're working on right now. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a minute. But what we also see with the health and wellness is that how many people are wanting to bring their exercise regimen, their whatever they do, their yoga, their goat yoga, which is what I'm into, that you'll see here. But anyway, that's a whole other story. But we are seeing that they're wanting to bring that with them, and that's what they'll do when they're on vacation. So they're coming in to walk the trails, to take a yoga class, to go to Casadega for healing or something, or get a reading, something like that. So really, we have been inspired to put this as one of our new initiatives. We've already met with we're up to about 40 companies, 40 businesses, again, from up in Pearson down to Enterprise, that are in this industry, in the health and wellness industry. And so be on the lookout for that as one of our huge initiatives this year. I hope that you've been seeing some of our public relations offerings, and that we did complete our, I brought this to you the last 2 years, but we did complete the project, what we call the Wings of the West Trail, again, that has all of these wings that people can go and have their photos made with. It was inspired by our artist in residence, Erica Group. And it's really going very, very well. It's one of those kind of things where people want to go and have their photos made at a lot of the wings, and I know several of you have done that. So something that we're trying to do too is some additional Google search. People know that they want to come to our area. They know what they want to do in our area, but they might not know that they want to come to our area. So we're doing a whole lot more, almost $100,000 this year in additional Google search and display, not only for the destination, but also for our target segments like trails and wellness and weddings, outdoor enthusiasts, that kind of thing. We did have won an award this last year, actually 2 awards, with our What's Up in West Volusia, which is our video series, that we're also kind of dividing that up and using that in content in different places. I talked about the Wings of the West. We've expanded some travel shows to not only go to wedding shows over to the villages, to some of our markets within Florida, to go and attract the market that we saw is about 45 to 65 is our market that we've found, but we're also looking at some younger markets to try to get out there to younger folks to come to our area, because it is pretty cool over here. We've got a new visitors guide that we're going to expand on this year to include not only what we have here in the west side, but also to say that how well how great and wonderful it is to have two of the best beaches in Florida right next to us. Doing a couple of new things, bringing a couple of TV shows that are going to be showing our great fishing in the area. One is called Fishing University, and the Crappie Masters that I'll talk about in a moment. And then we are also doing some sponsored podcasts for those 4 communities that I talked about, the outdoor enthusiast and the weddings and that kind of thing. Again, partnerships, when you're small like us, you couldn't do it without your partners, and this is my 2 sisters, as I call them, my 2 tourism sisters. We do have a year-round partnership and relationship with HA and SEVA, on up to our other bigger brothers and sisters, Visit Florida and the state, Southeast Tourism Society, the states within the Southeast, and then on up to Brand USA, which is our national tourism association. Something else that I brought to you last year that's really worked well is we became the official travel partner with Stetson University, just because they are a huge part of what brings business into our area. But we've also done some out-of-market work with the Tortugas, the Daytona Tortugas. They've really been helpful to us, and we're going to do some kind of up-and-coming markets for us with them. And then we have a dirt car nationals that are held out at Volusia Speedway, and we're going to be working some with them as well. We do have a small amount, about $10,000, that we have for event support, and some additional money for our crappie tournaments. We're actually doing 2 this year. We deal with some folks like the DeLand Aviation Showcase. There's a World Disc Golf Association event that's going to be happening next summer in DeBary, and we're going to help them with that. But probably one of the things that we're most excited about, for the last few years, we've been helping the Daytona Marathon with their marathon, but this year we have a marathon, a half marathon, and a 5K that are going to be held starting in Gemini Springs, and are actually going to go on our trails in West Volusia. So we're real excited about that. The West Volusia runners have been helping us with that. Again, marketing partners with a lot of different people. I won't read all of this because really I've been in this industry since 1985, and I've never had a job like this where every single day an opportunity walks in my door. It's just amazing what people want to do over here, y'all. So some of the things that we're dealing with, working with our chambers, the River of Lakes Heritage Corridor and the Black Bear Corridor, Heritage Corridor, are both in our area. Flower, you see, is the representatives for weddings in the area, just to name a few. We're also working with a lot of non-traditional partners now. Advent Health approached us earlier in the year to be able to use our destination videos for recruitment for their doctors and nurses. So I'm hoping to work with a lot of the healthcare folks, especially as we start this new health and wellness initiative. Last but not least, we've got the Superior Small Lodging Program, which you probably know we have a lot of hotels and motels here in the town or in the area that are under 50 units, and so that's who we're going to be working with them to get some exposure for those guys. I'm just going to bring the budget in front of you now. We adopted a budget of $618,000 in our convention development tax last year, and I'm proud to say that we're estimating a $684,000 that we collected. We really had a bang-up, fantastic year. So for the upcoming year, we're requesting $698,000. We have a little bit less in miscellaneous revenue than we thought we were because of a coloring book that we've given a lot more away than we sold. And then that's our appropriated fund balance, just to show you there. Just really quickly to go through, we're at full personnel right now too. We have 3 full-time and 3 part-time. We're very excited about that. The marketing expense, again, some of our professional services have gone down since we did do some really big things in 18-19. Promotional advertising, I'm very proud that we're getting our numbers up for that, $250,000 in print, digital, and social for the first time in a long time. Operating expenses go up just slightly with increases in our rental building that we have here in downtown. Utilities, we are going up with our memberships and sponsorships, again, just because that's been so successful with us this year. And that's what I've got.
Okay. Dr. Lowry. Oh.
I was getting ready to push it. I want to go ahead and make a motion to accept. Make a motion to approve.
Motion made by Lowry, second by Johnson to approve. Any comments? I have just a couple.
Okay.
You have a fishing tournament you said that you're sponsoring. What?
We do. We have 2 fishing tournaments.
I
Two.
thought you were from Florida.
It's crappie or crappie or speckled perch, whatever you want to call them.
Florida is specs.
Yeah, specs. Yeah, we've got 2.
Lowry probably calls them crappie.
We've got 2 coming up this time. We've had a lot of success with the Crappie Masters, and now Crappie USA is coming.
Just
call them good eating.
I do too.
They are. They're really good. And the other question is, I know you're going after Las Vegas and Nashville on the the wedding destinations, and I'm sure that some of those people in Nashville would be happy for you to take some of them.
I know they would.
Because they are slammed.
Yeah.
But that is a huge
It's a
industry
huge market
right now.
for all
Huge.
3 of us. So.
Yeah. Anyway, any additional comments or questions? Any objection to the motion?
Okay.
Hearing none, the
Thank you
motion
very
passes
much.
unanimous. Thank you,
Thank
Georgia.
you.
Good afternoon. I'm Lori Campbell Baker, the Executive Director for the Halifax Area Advertising Authority, doing business as the Daytona Beach Area Convention and Visitor Bureau. And, okay, here we go. You ready? First, I want to just remind you, we have the Halifax Area Advertising Authority is 11 members, each appointed by the County Council, and these are your appointees. And if I could just say quickly that we have our chair, Linda Bowers, in the audience, as well as John Phillips. And I want to just a quick introduce to the staff. These are the experts that worked with the Hub Board to put the entire budget and marketing plan together. We have Chuck Grimes, Kay Galloway, Liz Payne, Linda McMahon, and Kate Holcomb, and they all represent their leaders in their respective departments. I will not read you the entire slide as promised, but I just wanted to hit a couple of highlights. We had a big support in the air service this year with bringing Sunwing in, and we're really excited about that. We also hosted in the meeting sector some really big events, the U.S. Sports Congress, Southeast Tourism, and then in Tour and Travel, the Florida Huddle was absolutely huge for us, and all of these events brought people to our destination, to Volusia County, that may not have otherwise seen it. The response was wow in so many ways, and we partnered with Southeast and West Volusia to take them everywhere, and so it was a great exercise. Just some examples of our campaign. We are still operating under wide open fun, and it has applications in so many different directions. Know that we always lead with the beach when we can, but then we go quickly into things like arts, history, and culture, attractions and eateries, and of course our trails, our reef systems, our shopping, all the fun things to do here. Some stats on engagement. The digital media, as Georgia was saying, really important. And so they're very trackable, as is the social media. We've got some stickers for you, by the way, hashtag Love Daytona Beach. You'll be getting those, as well as a social card that gives you all of the different platforms that we're on. We try to share that with as many people as we can. This year's goals, as we go into the next fiscal, we are doing a refresh on DaytonaBeach.com, and if you haven't taken a look at the site lately, the content itself is just overwhelming. We add to it all the time, but now we're going to have it be even a little bit more user-friendly on the mobile side. We'll be going after some younger audiences as well as the audiences that we're currently seeing. We'll be partnering strongly with the Ocean Center, the airport, Southeast and West Volusia. There's just so much going on this year. This is our budget, and Deb, thank you for saying that about reserves, because we are taking a cue from our friends on the west coast of Florida and other areas of the world, and increasing our reserves so that we're ready no matter what happens. In terms of personnel, we've added an operations position, and we are restructuring one of our sales positions. Linda and her team are just going all strength forward in terms of getting sales, new markets for meetings, for the Ocean Center, for other meetings facilities, including our hotels. So with the exception of those two, we are budgeting for a 3% increase across the board.
Quick question,
Yeah.
Ms. Dennis.
Thank you for going back to the reserves there. There's a difference between 800,000 in reserves and 2.5 million in reserves.
Mm-hmm.
So what would you anticipate? 2.5 million is a lot of money for reserves.
So that's the fund balance.
Understood.
Yeah. So a couple of years ago, we spent down the fund balance to really beef up late summer, early fall business. We spent it down to an extent that we felt was a little uncomfortable. So we are just at the point where we have gotten it back to where we feel like it needs to be. It's at 22%.
So if you run a campaign on an issue, what does that run? 500,000, 200,000?
You know, it depends on the income coming in and the issue itself. That's a really good question. Because if it's something that shuts down tourism in general, then we have a lot of damage control to do.
We do, thank you. And even with the hurricanes and telling everybody we're still open for business and getting that message out there. So I guess the comfort zone for me, and I didn't realize that, and maybe Mr. Rechtenwald, we really need to work with community information and our ad authorities in messaging, knowing, I got to tell you, now that I understand you guys have got almost $3.5 million in reserves to help the message, you're going to see a whole lot of more collaboration maybe going forward. But seriously, thank you. This is a really good thing. I didn't realize that you were so strong with that.
That actually, Deb, brings up a good point, because one of the things that we've always taken great advantage of is Visit Florida and its strength. And as you know, right now, Visit Florida's funding's been cut to $50 million. We don't know what's going to go on in the next year after that. And so we're preparing for collaboration always, but collaborating on different levels, perhaps with different organizations, in order to help get the message out. Our budget, especially this one amongst the three, looks big, but when you compare it to the competitors that Volusia County is trying to be in line with for those weddings, for those meetings, for those visitors, we're pretty small.
So I remember Southeast Volusia, I think they said your revenue's up, was 9% last year. What do you think yours is up approximately?
I am not sure what the percentage is. I know that we were up a tick, probably close to 150,000 over last year, over last year's budget, and we have a couple of projects that you'll be excited about. The Ocean Center's funded at $400,000 this year, and we put
that's contractual. That's always going to be funded. But I was looking at the percentage of increase. That's okay.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, but also we budgeted for $50,000 for air service support. So always working together with your great team here at the county.
Thank you. It's
Yeah.
a great job. Thanks.
And then I know I want to show our sales. I'm not sure how to hit play on this. This is our latest. So that sort of speaks to the collaboration that you'll see throughout the Southeast and West Volusia tourism. We just met last week and talked about what are we doing next. It's a good time. It's a very good time. More exciting things happening in Volusia County than ever before. And that's all I got. Thank you. Yeah.
That's it?
That's it.
Waiting for you to say.
I got
"And
more
I would like
videos
to
if you
approve our
want."
budget. Are you waiting for something? I can't believe that's
would
it.
love to get our budget and marketing plan approved.
Ms. Wheeler?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that
Thank you.
presentation. I loved the video. With that, I'd like to move approval of the advertising budget for the Halifax Area Advertising Authority.
I'll second.
Motion made by Wheeler, seconded by Gertman. Any comment? I didn't particularly like the music, but I'm not going to be a critic.
You didn't like the music? It was all I could do not to dance.
It almost put me to sleep. I could think of some really, nice, something that would make you cruise into
That's a
Daytona
Nashville market.
Beach or something, just saying. Motion's made and seconded. Any further discussion on that? And just add this. I appreciate the reserves. While they may seem large, percentage-wise, they're not. And we all know that a little thing can change. I mean, we were the epitome of Shark Week. I mean, they were showing off. They thought that just because it was Shark Week, they had to show their fins.
It might have been that music.
Probably. Since there's no objection to the motion passes unanimous. And thank all of you, the directors and all of the people, for making us an attractive area for people to come to. Thank you very much. And if we want to take a break, y'all can, not a break, but if y'all would like to leave, you can. Do that all at one time, so it will... And we'll move to Joanne. Item 11A.
Good afternoon, Joanne Magley, Community Information Director, and this is a grounds use request by the Brannon family. The request is to use the historic courthouse for the retirement party for Dave Brannon of the Volusia County Sheriff's Office. The event is scheduled from 6 to 9 p.m. September 14th, 2019, and the facility will be reserved from 5 to 10 p.m. 150 to 200 people are expected to attend the event, which will be catered by a third party that will serve food and alcohol. We seek approval as recommended, subject to the terms and conditions of the Volusia County Grounds Use Policy, and receipt and approval by the risk manager of the required special event certificate of insurance, including liquor liability.
I had Ms. Post up, but, okay.
I'll second your motion.
Motion made by Johnson, seconded by Post. Any objection to the motion? Hearing none, the motion passes unanimous. We will move to item number 12, which
All right.
is a community events.
Joanne Magley, Community Information Director, and we have two events today. The first is the Economic Development Quarterly Briefing, which Brad Harris spoke about earlier. Again, that briefing is at 7:45 a.m. Friday, August 9th, in the Dennis McGee Room at Daytona Beach International Airport. And then at 5:30 p.m. on August 28th, Volusia County government and some of our community partners will kick off the 2020 Census Awareness Campaign at the Emergency Operations Center in Daytona Beach. The local committee is being chaired by council members Billy Wheeler and Barbara Gertman. The purpose of this meeting is to recruit members of the community to serve on subcommittees representing colleges and universities, early learning, faith-based organizations, senior citizens, and other community organizations. Those committee members can then help spread the word to residents about the importance of filling out the census form early next year. And that completes the event update. Any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
And we will move to item 13. We need a appointment to the TDC. And Ms. Wheeler.
Yes, I'd like to make a move to appoint Robert Bernetti, hotel manager, to the Tourist Development Council.
Robert Bernetti has been asked to be appointed to the TDC. Any objections to that? Hearing none, so will happen. We will move now to item 14. Sunrail Citizens Advisory Committee appointments. Quite honestly, till I saw this, I didn't realize we had, well, I guess I did because we've done it before.
Are we needing 2 positions?
We need 2 positions.
Yes, yes, sir.
I'll nominate
Margaret Iglesias has been nominated to be appointed by Mr. Lowry. Here, any objection to that nomination? She is confirmed. And the next one would be Maybelle Bryant James. If anyone wants to appoint.
I'll make a motion.
Mr. Johnson nominated Maybelle Bryant James to the appointment. Any objection to that? Then that also is confirmed. And it doesn't matter whether you want to, you can speak, but it's done. Come on. Appreciate you being here today.
I know you hate me speaking, but 2 things. One, I want to remind you that although we didn't do well with JetBlue and Silver Airlines, remember that Embry-Riddle University.
That's not what the issue is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was you had finished this because you
No.
do appointments.
She handed me this for this item, so, okay.
Next
Okay.
item.
Since there are no objections, those 2 citizens were appointed. Now, John, we come back to public. I wondered why you wanted to worry about, of course, I know you're interested in Sunrail, so.
Yes, I'm not real fond of
Ride it all the time.
Sunrail. No, again, public comments. I understand we did not do well with JetBlue or Silver, but you got to remember that we also put our head on the line for Embry-Riddle University and the Daytona National Speedway NASCAR are both at the airport. I think we hit the ball out of the ballpark for both of those. So for incentives, we do quite well. And secondly, with reference to ECHO, the paper has us, we collect $7 million, we spend $2 to $3 million. My question is, where is the other $4 million? I mean, that's a lot every year to just kind of vanish into the woodwork. I'm sure you know where it went, but the public doesn't. Secondly, if we are to discuss this, which I'm sure you will, I suggested there be 3 options. One, you can cancel and not renew it. You have that option. Secondly, you could lower the fees from 20 cents to 10 or whatever. Or third, put it out to a vote for the public. Which of these 3 would you prefer? Would you prefer that we just not renew it? Would you prefer that we drop it to 10 cents? Or would you renew it at the 20 cents? I think the public has a right to weigh in on this, and I think there's plenty of time to put it on the ballot. Thank you.
Thank you, John. George.
Yes, sir. Just real quick. Just a note, it's a little bit of a sad note, but a note of interest. If any of you have ever been up to Public Works and had a meeting, John and Julie across the way is the Vonnie Pearson conference room, and you may wonder who's Vonnie Pearson, where that come from, and unfortunately I got word that he passed away this last 2 weeks out in Colorado, but he was kind of the father or the beginning county development engineer who had a lot to do with writing the current subdivision regulations, stormwater minimum standards, road requirements. Basically put a lot of the technical meat on the bones to what is today our land development code. So I just want to note his passing, and certainly was a very he had a lot of personality, very forceful guy. I never had the chance to work with him, but I certainly met him. He would come from Colorado and visit us from time to time. So I just want to note that, and also just say I am walking few inches taller today. Thank you very much for the confidence in making the appointment today. So I appreciate that.
Dan?
Yes, sir. I just want to advise the council that it's necessary for us to address the topic of small wireless facilities again to implement the legislation, and so we'll be bringing an ordinance to you in September that implements the new statute. That's it.
Okay, Mr. Johnson.
I want to just make a comment about one is Rick Carl running the airport. What a good job you've done on making that thing productive. Also, this last week, the county's been involved with an animal issue, and I want to commend the county for trying to find a solution. So often when we get in government, we're looked at as not wanting solutions, but this is a situation where the county has come together once again to try to help and not hinder, and try to find how do we help a situation through. I commend Joe and your crew for that. Thank you.
Fred?
I'm good.
Ms. Post?
I just have one thing. Over the last week, I met with some funeral directors, actually, and some veterans from around the county, and also the Cape Canaveral National Cemetery staff. And during that conversation, it was discovered or brought out that, of course, the funeral directors, when veterans pass away, the funeral directors are obviously going to be looking at funeral benefits for the family and discussing that and trying to pull that monies to pay for the funerals, right, so they can provide that. But what sometimes is missed is any additional veteran services monies that might be available to the spouses. And in talking with our director of veteran services, he's very open to now working closely with the funeral directors. There was an example that he had brought up. He had talked to a woman whose husband had passed away, a veteran, and she was about to lose her home, a number of things going on, ended up discovering that over the years she had lost out on over $100,000 in veterans benefits that she could have, she could have received over the years. At the time of his passing, our Veteran Services Division was able to work with her and actually get her started. Of course, none of that $100,000 is retroactive in any way, but from here forward, she's now able to get to recoup some monies and certainly help in supplementing future income for her. And in part of that discussion, I think we're now moving forward to work on supplementing the incomes of future spouses left behind. So I think that's a very good thing, and I just wanted to point that out and point out some of the good work that's being done from our Veteran Services Division as well. Thank you.
Ms. Wheeler? Ms. Denny's?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, an issue that has been brought up by a constituent that staff's been involved in George, I think it's time, as I told the constituent, Mr. Schrader, would be discussing this. Mr. Schrader has an issue with our policy in retaining walls down in New Smyrna Beach and would like us to review our policy. Mr. Rechtenwald, I told him I would bring it up under council member comment time because to keep including staff in this, and I know we've gone through PLDRC and I think there were.
Yeah, I can go over a little bit, and I have staff here.
Please take this, see if we want to go with it.
Yeah. We have a situation in a coastal area that a person has, a contractor has, without a permit, filled in a large area of a lot underneath a home that was built on pilings. And so that's a problem in itself, and then he has also then built a retaining wall, which, you know, if you were in a hilly area or something, you know, you would obviously build walls. But he built it without any engineering behind it, and used materials more commonly used for landscaping, and not necessarily retaining of structural element of dirt. So he's violated several things, you know, both in the building world. Maybe you guys could, Scott, do you have kind of just a summary, or Palmer, of the things that would be out of our policy? And as Ms. Denny said, he came and he met, and of course, he would like things to be changed, but this is first of all, it's a very unique area of the county that has to have special attention. A lot of the things, you know, that he's done, I think we would definitely, from an engineering perspective, I think we would disagree with. So, as Ms. Denny said, some of this would require council to have us go look at ordinance changes, and that's, you know, where we're at today. But I just want Scott to kind of summarize where the issues are.
Scott Ashley, Senior Zoning Manager. Some of the issues involved with the wall is the height, as Mr. Reckenwald mentioned. We do have a code provision that allows within your front and side and rear yards different wall heights. The front, obviously, because of the driveway locations and traffic, you want to be able to see backing out. We have a 4-foot height limitation. In your side and rear in a residential area, you're allowed up to 6 feet. The gentleman has elevated the home, as Mr. Reckenwald said, by providing, the house has to be elevated because where he's located in a coastal environment. He then added fill, and to retain that fill, he built a 6-foot retaining wall, and then on top of that added a 6-foot wall. And he proceeded to fill on that additional 6-foot wall to where there's approximately about a foot less of that is fill material, so that there can be basically a walk up or walk out house versus elevated, like most of the homes in Bethune Beach area. You walk up via stairway, or you have to fill with fill material. Because of the, as you see on your screen, this is a section, this is the side of the wall. This is one of our inspectors. He's standing at the first part is the official retaining wall.
I think the issue is, do you want us to ask staff to go back and revisit this?
Exactly.
He's in obvious non-compliance.
Right. The point, not to, I'll just give a little bit of detail of the case, but we're not ruling on the case. It's, do you want us to go back and look at changing rules?
Personally, I don't. That's just me. I know that you asked, Ms. Denny's had asked. I followed the emails. The guy got caught doing something illegal, and then he lashed out at employees, and that lashing out, if nothing else, because they're there for a reason. I mean, I guarantee he didn't put any dead men in that wall, right?
Yes,
well, you know
that's correct. We have no idea what he did, because he did.
I'm talking about the.
I know what you mean.
Okay, you know, some of the people.
Right, support back into the yard, and
Right.
We have no idea what he's done, because he did it.
You've given us what he's done.
Right.
I don't see any reason to revisit our current standards.
And
that's just me personally.
Just to highlight, this is the reason why the code was changed a number of years ago, because there are a couple other homes in the Bethune Beach area. One was done by the same contractor, where you created this effect, kind of a canyon effect for your neighboring property, because they were older homes. They're built on a general ground level, and the homes next to them have been built up. So this is what's, our concern too is, and the neighbors who, this is a property, and this is a former employee, but they're standing next to a wall that caused the ordinance to be changed, because this is also about a 12-foot rear yard wall.
Right.
And
So I think I can hopefully guide this discussion, Mr. Chair. I'll make a motion if council wants to direct staff to revisit, because it's a policy issue. So I will make the motion to direct staff to see if we want to revisit this policy. Is that how, George, to revisit the?
Is it? Yeah. Yes.
the policy on the wall height on the
Right.
side yard.
In our current standards.
So I'll make a motion to see if council would like to proceed with that. So I will make the motion.
Motion is made to ask staff to revisit. Is there a second? Hearing no second, the motion dies for lack of a second, and we will move on to your next comment.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so just two more issues here, and this is just, we've been reading about it in the newspaper, but the First Step Shelter in Daytona, what this council agreed to at the time was a shelter that was a come-as-you-are shelter of 100 beds. That's now been depleted 65% to only 45 beds, and now the possibility of bringing another county involved. Well, now you've got this thing called Prop Share. If Daytona is looking at this, the proportionate share that Volusia County has in, and honestly, why we would want to bring in Flagler's homeless to our shelter, because once they're on the streets, they are in our service area. Of course they want to collaborate with us. Of course they do. So I'm just here to say I'm watching this, and last thing I want to do is show up at one of those first shelter board meetings, but I'm real close to doing it here because this is not what we agreed to. This was not the good faith that was presented to the Volusia County Council and the millions of dollars committed to a project that is not only delayed, but 65% underperformance of what was agreed to. I think that's a pretty doggone big deal. And it's unfortunate, but okay, now the last thing is some really, really good news. And I want to thank, we saw a check presentation here, and it reminded me, Abby Johnson, she was with us the other night. To those that showed up down in Oak Hill, and staff, thank you. Thank you to all the staff that showed up down in Oak Hill. There was an energy in that room that was palpable from the first time the people walked in. We thought maybe we get 30 people, then we planned for 50. We ended up with 74 people. 74 people, and then we had Congressman Waltz was there. When you start getting the congressman to ask if he can be there, we had Congressman Waltz, we had, of course, Senator Wright, Representative David Santiago, and our councilman, the chair, thank you, Chair Kelly, and Councilman Johnson and Wheeler, myself, George Rechtenwald, John and Julie, oh my gosh, John Booker, everybody, Judy Grimm was there. Who's that? The cities, we had two mayors there, electeds were there, and business leaders. And here's what happened. I got to show the check, Mr. Chair.
Some of the best fried shrimp I've ever eaten.
It is the best fried shrimp, and the better than fried shrimp is a $200,000. They came to Volusia County. I got to show this, George. Can I keep this in my office? Sure. Okay. So $200,000. Yeah. But this is collaborative work, and that came from the Indian River Lagoon Council, and I have the good fortune of chairing it right now, and Billy Wheeler also serving on that advisory board. But this is just the beginning. These checks, this money that you're seeing is Volusia County. It's because our staff is working, the grants that they apply for and things that we do, they just do, George. And Judy Grimm, I miss her already. That lady is a powerhouse. But we had $100,000 for the Gabordi Canal that we referenced earlier, and $100,000 for Oak Hill septic to sewer. Representative Santiago said, and then when I met with Senator Simmons, who wasn't able to be there that night, but met with him separately, and he said, we're just waiting on Volusia to come back in this legislative session. So the table's been set. We're going to continue to work behind the scenes on water quality for all of Volusia. And I know that some of the other cities are now asking, how do we apply for these grants? We're going to help them do that too, and work collaboratively. So big success. Thank you so much. I look forward to, and Riverside Conservancy sponsoring it in Volusia County. It was really good shrimp, Ben. It really was. And that's all I've got.
Ms. Gertman.
I'll make it really simple and easy. Journey's End. I have the same concerns. I've been contacted by a number of residents and concerned citizens about this long-standing resource in the community. So I'm really happy that staff are working with this, and I hope for a positive or as positive as possible outcome. But I just want our constituents to know that we are trying our best to make a good situation out of what it can be. Last week had my public works tours, so I just want to say what a great job that staff, what they do, and certainly enjoyed meeting many of the passionate staff about wastewater. I also attended an affordable housing workshop that I was invited to with community staff, community services staff, and was really pleased to see the innovative things that are happening in Central Florida and them including us in that. And I think there may be some opportunities and initiatives that maybe we can leverage and maybe bring to Volusia. And lastly, last week I visited with Viviana Janer. She's County Commissioner for Osceola. And she was excited to show me their new Neo City. And it's I guess they were given 500 acres, and they have a full plan for a high-tech community. But what they have now is something called a nonprofit called The Bridge. And they've collaborated with a company that makes the microchips. So the nonprofit's making the chips, but there's a Denmark company that's doing the technology and the engineering. And they want to represent, I guess, Central Florida as a resource. They say, can we be a tool in your toolbox when you want to bring business to Volusia that need this type of technology and need a product that's created in the U.S.? Because we know, you consider the concerns with, hacking and cyber warfare. If we can have our products created internally, and if that's a great concern for a security product, they have this totally high-tech new facility that's been created. So they're saying no need to recreate the wheel. We've got you here. So focus on, bringing someone that could utilize this technology. So I certainly mentioned about Deb and the space opportunities that we're looking forward to, and told him I would certainly connect him with our EDC and Team Volusia. So I think they've got some great opportunities that they're working on, but I love that they're reaching out to be more collaborative. I guess initially the project was supposed to be in Orange County, and however it landed in their backyard, they want to collaborate with Volusia. So I think it was a great opportunity, and the more we connect, local is the new regional. So that was it for me. I just appreciate everybody, and especially the staff and the hard work that they're doing, and certainly want to welcome our new deputy county manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Just a couple of quick ones. One, Deb, thank you for all what you have done with the water issues. We all have known you have to have skin in the game to get it. And we have all been working individually and collectively and separately on developing contacts at the state and federal level to take advantage of those grants that we can get. I don't like to say that it's sad that the half-cent sales tax didn't pass, but it is, because we were primed to go get more money to make a difference and the funding, because we're going to have it. When Waltz mentioned the other night, we already knew this, there are no earmarks. So transportation, water, anything we can't get those. But we're going to have to continue working with what we have and make the most of it. And thank you for taking the leadership role in that, Ms. Dennis. Next, on the ECHO, I guess I'm partly responsible for the contact with Flagler County. I was asked to do that. And I take a little bit different approach. If Flagler County, and we're not involved in the management of it, we're not involved in the operation by choice. And I think that was a real smart decision. But if they can come in and they can increase the beds to the 168 or 160 by doing that and have the funding, and they've also asked that they were going to go out and raise money as well, bring donations and contributions to help fund it. If all that, I'm not going to say no to it yet. I would like to see it fully functional. And if that can be, I'm not going to say no till I wanted to see it discussed and worked out. I've also had ideas and kind of talked to a few people individually. I would like to see that area, which we have no control over again, some 10 by 20 tiny houses surrounding that area, maybe 100 of them, where people could transition into an area. It wouldn't be that expensive, and I think we could get funding. It's a small something to what they do in Tallahassee, where they have home ownership. But you can build a 10 by 20, and it doesn't really have to be much more than some of these small portable buildings where you do have a 10 by 20. Think about it. A person who's homeless that has a place that they can open a door and put their things in and become contributing. I also like the idea of allowing them to have an area, but there again, we don't own it, don't operate it, and don't control it. I'd like to have a place where they can go put their tents, if they want to do that. There's some people that are not going to want to be inside. But I think the start is there, and I'm hopefully that when it's opened in the next 2 months, that a lot of things will happen in a positive way to make a difference for what we have saw was the need at the time, and we can go from there. And lastly, it was been suggested to me that, ECHO, we've had a few people comment on the ECHO information. I'll reserve what my feelings are on that. We have engaged conversation, and that was the point of bringing it forward. It seemed like every time you mentioned that you want to cut a budget some way, whatever you come up with, somebody doesn't like it. Strange it's that way, isn't it? But some of us have seen this, that, we're going to cut the budget. You want us to cut it? Well, don't cut this. We finally stopped going to people in Ormond Beach to ask what they wanted to cut because you'd have a parade of people coming. Don't cut recreation. Don't cut the senior center. Don't cut this. Don't cut that. What do you want to cut? By the time they realized, after a couple of years, they said, hey, you're not going to cut it, so we're not going to come complain about it. But anyway, been suggested to me that we take a look at section 404 of the county charter, just so that we all are on board on understanding what that is. There's been issues that possibly could arise to violating this.
What does it reference?
It's referencing non-interference by county council. And it states, except for the purpose of inquiry and information, the council and committees or members thereof are expressly prohibited from interfering with the performance of the duties of any employee of the county who is under the direct or indirect supervision of the county manager. Such action shall be malfeasance within the meaning Article 4, Section 7A of the Florida Constitution, and could lead to suspension. I've just said it was asked for me to make us all aware of that, and I'm sure everyone is aware of it, but if you're not, it's out there. And with that, we'll get out of here before 1 o'clock, 12:56. We adjourn.
We're adjourned, but I've got it. Jeff Crumbly, Kevin Captain, Gary, thank you guys for all the hours that you put in down in Oak Hill. I'm so sorry I didn't say thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
But that won't be it.